Chapter 1442. Emotianji smiled faintly and said, "Back then it was melancholy. Today it's gentleness. 2 generations of thinkers. Smart kids remember the net. Super fast hands update the net." Chuyang chuckled. "Heaven's secrets are unpredictable." Emotianji nodded slightly. His eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Yes. Heaven's secrets are unpredictable. They can't be defeated. Heaven's secrets have never been seen through. Chuyang laughed. "I believe you can win." Emotianji's eyes were serious. "No, we can win." The same. Chuyang pondered and said, "Heaven's secrets. But, even though heaven's secrets can't be completely seen through, there are times when people can succeed in comprehending heaven's secrets." Emotianji nodded and said, "So, even though heaven's secrets are mysterious, they are not invincible. If heaven's secrets don't move, they will be the enemy's target. So heaven's secrets need to be constantly changing." Chuyang was completely relieved. Emotianji's words were very serious. So serious that it was almost as if he was speaking with his heart. It could be seen that he was constantly enriching himself. Moreover, he didn't underestimate the enemy at all. Chuyang knew that Diwu Chongchang and Diwu Qingro were planning for the same thing. Emotianji had taken it seriously. Moreover, he had started to be very careful. Previously it was just a battle between the strong and the weak. But now it was a battle of life and death. As far as Chuyang knew, Emotianji in this state was almost invincible in terms of scheming and plotting. Chuyang immediately sent a message to the sword spirit to call him back. Then everyone was ready to set off. Xie Danxiong was lying on the ground. He looked at Chuyang sadly. "Big brother, can we find someone else to interrogate the prisoners in the future?" Chuyang patted him on the shoulder and said, "You did well. Now brothers, we lack such a talent. Do well. I believe you will become the most ruthless official in the heavenly layer." Xie Danxiong's handsome face suddenly collapsed like a wilted cigar. "Those 2 people are dead, right?" Chuyang asked. Xie Danxiong took a breath and said, "Yes." "That's good. Let's go." The group shot towards the northwest like lightning. In the same place, the simple temporary interrogation room that was surrounded by 4 snow walls stood silently. Not long after Chuyang and the others had left, the 2 white-robed men finally rushed back. They were burning with anxiety. From afar they could see the collapsed mountain peak. That kind of heaven-shattering and earth-shattering scene caused the 2 of them to feel uneasy and full of worry. The 2 of them moved like lightning, first ascending the mountain peak on the left. Looking around as far as their eyes could see, there were no traces of humans at all. He released his divine perception to search, but there was no response. It seemed to be between heaven and earth. Only the 2 of them were left alone. The 2 of them searched the entire mountain peak but found nothing. The 2 of them panicked and couldn't help but shout, "Third brother! Fourth brother!" The wilderness was silent. Their voices spread far and wide, and the mountains and valleys roared in response, booming without end. In a place like this, where they were doing secret business, there shouldn't have been such a big commotion. But now, the ominous feeling in their hearts was getting thicker and thicker. Slowly they felt as if they were about to suffocate. Their hearts were filled with panic and worry. How could he care so much? It was as if the thing that they treasured the most was slowly leaving, and it was finally silent. The 2 of them shouted as they searched. Later they became more and more panicked. They ran all over the mountain like crazy, throwing out palms after palms to shake up the snowflakes that had just fallen on the ground. They looked underneath. Finally they came down the mountain. Finally, "Boss, there are traces of battle here." The other white-robed masked man threw out a palm and the snow flew up. Immediately they saw the traces of battle, the messy footsteps, the little blood stains. The little traces left by the saber light and the sword energy. The 2 of them were shocked. They hurriedly moved and turned over the entire area, picking up the layers of stone and snow that were covered by the avalanche. Finally, the white-robed masked man suddenly trembled and stood there in a daze. The other man turned his head and saw an arm quietly appear on the ground. The finger was slightly curled and it was frozen stiff. On the almost transparent, frost-covered thumb, there was a purple thumb ring. "Third brother." The white-robed masked man threw himself on the ground as if he had gone crazy. He held the arm in his arms and tears dripped down, soaking the cloth covering his face. In such a bitterly cold weather, when tears flowed out, a burst of mist actually rose up in spirals and spiraled upwards. "This is third brother's thumb ring. This is third brother's arm." The other white-robed masked man looked as if he had been struck by lightning. He looked up to the sky and howled, "Third brother! Third brother! Where are you?" Who did this? The two of them almost went crazy. Then they searched with all their might and turned over the entire battlefield. Then they found scattered pieces of flesh, fingers, arms, broken legs. They collected them piece by piece. Their bodies trembled more and more violently, and they almost couldn't stand. These were the flesh and blood of their brothers. Now they were all chopped down. Where are my brothers? Their eyes were bloodshot as they searched around like they had gone mad. Who did this? Bastard, come out. Third brother? Fourth brother? Where are you? Finally, the two of them stared blankly. In the dense snow in front of them, they found the four walls of snow that surrounded them. They stood there quietly, not moving at all. Although there were only four walls of snow, the two of them could clearly feel the aura of death inside. The two of them stared at it with their four eyes. At this moment, they actually didn't dare to go forward. It was as if there were countless evil spirits and demons in the four walls of snow. The two of them trembled, and their lips trembled as they walked over step by step. One step deep, one step shallow. At this moment, the dignified 8th grade supreme martial artists actually seemed so weak that they couldn't use their internal energy. Finally, they reached the front. The two of them closed their eyes, gritted their teeth, and stepped in. Their trembling hands were still able to send out palm energy. When they sent out their palms, the snow flew up lightly, as if dead souls were fluttering in a messy and powerless manner. Two corpses that were too horrible to look at. They appeared in front of the two of them. His four limbs were incomplete, and his face was filled with unbearable pain. However, his four eyes were still wide open as he stared at the snowy sky. His lifeless pupils were frozen with extreme humiliation and a desire that made him want to die immediately. Third brother. Fourth brother. The two of them went limp as if all their bones had been extracted from their bodies. They knelt on the ground with a thud. With a cry, they spat out blood all over the sky. They crawled on their knees, trembling as they approached their brother's body. They opened their arms and hugged their brother's already cold body tightly in their arms, unwilling to let go. They tried to use their own body heat to drive away the freezing cold for their brother, but to no avail. Their brother couldn't feel it anymore. Who did it? Who dared to do it all? The two of them roared at the sky, crying out with heart-wrenching pain, "Who did it? Who killed my brother?" This cry was the culmination of all the cultivation of an 8th grade supreme martial artist. Their voices exploded in midair like thunder, invaded by the warm body heat of the two of them. The two corpses that were already cold suddenly dripped with blood from their mouths and noses, bright red and eye-catching. The two of them knelt on the ground. They hugged their corpses tightly, howling at the sky. 1,000 years of reunion. 1,000 years of brothers. Far away in the northwest, Emotianji and the others also heard the faint howls from the wind and snow. For a moment, everyone was silent. Emotianji looked back quietly and asked in a low voice, "Do you feel that it's very cruel? Do you feel that it's a little unbearable? Or even, do you feel guilty?" He was asking Xie Danqiong. When he heard this cry, he clearly saw Xie Danqiong's body tremble. "Yes." Xie Danqiong took a breath. "Killing people, I've killed many, but this time, hearing such tragic cries, I suddenly felt the true brotherly love between them," Emotianji said coldly. "If you didn't kill him and let him kill you, all the brothers here would cry like this for you, and I can guarantee that it would be even more intense than this." Xie Danqiong's whole body shook. Emotianji was cold to the end. The two who died have already lived for thousands of years, freely roaming the martial world. In this life, how many people have they made cry like this? People of the martial world die in the martial world. Chuyang sighed. "Danqiong, this is the martial world. The enemy has family, we also have brothers. If the enemy's brothers don't feel bad, it's our family's turn to feel bad." Xie Danqiong took a deep breath and nodded heavily. "I understand. I just feel a little emotional and heavy in my heart." Chuyang said softly, "The martial world is a place of heartbreak. If you don't, I will be heartbroken." Everyone turned back and walked forward in silence. Chuyang held Mo Qingwu in his arms, Dong Wushang held Mo Lei, and the group quickly disappeared into the snow, at the Alliance's camp. Xiao Jingyan finally returned. He came back with Shi Qishu in his arms. When they saw this scene, all the supreme martial artists' eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Shi Qishu is dead? When Diwu Qingru received this news, his whole body trembled, and more than half of the tea he was holding spilled out. For a moment he was inexplicably shocked. Didn't they say that they wouldn't kill people? Why did they kill Shi Qishu? The Shi clan's troops all went crazy at once. The whole camp was in chaos. For people. 4 masked men in white. Xiao Jingyan's mouth was full of blood, his eyes ferocious and violent. They said that they were from the Li clan. They also used the martial arts of the Li clan, but I keep feeling that something is not right. I have already memorized their figures, eyesight, and voice. As long as I see them again, I will be able to recognize them immediately. Xiao Jingyan looked up to the sky and roared, "If I don't take revenge for this, may I, Xiao Jingyan, be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. After I die, I will fall into hell and never be reincarnated." The moment he heard that it was 4 masked men in white, Diwu Qingrou's heart skipped a beat. It was indeed them. What? The rules were very strict. They could be injured but could not be killed. Why did they still kill them? I continue to write. Brothers and sisters who still have monthly tickets, please throw 2 tickets over. GRQ. Chapter 1443. Diwu Qingrou frowned. After comforting Xiao Jingyan for a while, he suppressed the intense emotions of the Shi clan. Then he gathered the supreme martial artists who were leading the team to discuss and determine the countermeasures. Then he walked back to his own tent with a heavy heart, his brows tightly knitted. Smart kids remember network super fast hands update in the eyes of others. Diwu Qingrou was worried about the attack on Shi Qishu and Xiao Jingyan, but no one knew that he was thinking about a completely opposite problem. The doubts in Diwu Qingrou's heart were expanding. They kept saying that they were helping me, but they didn't care about my decision at all and didn't carry it out at all. At such a time when I needed experts, they actually killed an 8th grade supreme martial artist from their own side. What did this mean? Diwu Qingrou's eyes were gentle and he sat motionless. No one knew what he was thinking. From his expression, there wasn't even any sense of loss or anger. As usual, he was as calm as water. It was late at night. Diwu Qingrou was still sitting quietly. He seemed to be waiting for something. He believed that those 4 people would definitely come. There was a burst of mist in the air, and 2 figures appeared in front of Diwu Qingrou. Both of them were in rags, and their eyes were red with extreme grief and anger. Diwu Qingrou didn't seem to see them. He just said very calmly, "You're back?" The leader of the masked men in white took a deep breath and calmed his voice. "Yes, we are back. Something unexpected happened. Shi Qishu is dead." Diwu Qingrou faintly replied, "Oh, he's dead?" He didn't speak anymore. As if this matter was very common. The leader waited for a long time, waiting for Diwu Qingrou to ask the reason, but Diwu Qingrou didn't. "Why don't you ask me the reason?" The leader's eyes were like knives. The agreement was not to kill anyone, but now someone has been killed. Don't you find it strange? Don't you feel angry? Diwu Qingrou said lightly, "It's just one person dying. In this world people die every day. If they don't deserve to die, everyone has their reasons in other people's eyes. But what's the use of reasons? Dead is dead." Diwu Qingrou said sarcastically, "Even a peak 2nd grade supreme martial artist is just a piece of smelly meat after death. Is this very strange?" The 2 masked men in white breathed heavily at the same time, staring at Diwu Qingrou. They clenched their fists. They said hoarsely, "Not only Shi Qishu is dead, the 4 of us went out together. But only the 2 of us." He clenched his fists tightly, and his voice sounded as tragic as if he was spitting out blood. "My 3rd and 4th brothers are also dead." Diwu Qingrou slightly raised his eyebrows and said, "Oh, I see." His voice and expression were still calm. The masked man in white was panting heavily. Suddenly he grabbed Diwu Qingrou's clothes and shook Diwu Qingrou. He growled in a low voice, "My brother is dead. 2 of them. Qingrou, 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 Qingrou. Don't you have something?" Diwu Qingrou didn't say anything. His eyes coldly looked at the hand that was holding his collar. He slowly raised his head and looked into the eyes of the masked man in white. His gaze was calm, deep, and cold. "Qingrou, Qingrou. Qingrou, 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 ro, Qingrou, Qingrou, ro, ro." He let go of his hand weakly. Diwu Qingrou tidied his clothes as if nothing had happened. He sat down slowly and said, "Many people have died in this world. They are only important to you. What does it have to do with me?" The 2 men in white frowned at the same time, looking at him fiercely. Diwu Qingrou smiled faintly. "Your brothers are dead. Are their corpses better than others? You are making a scene here, and so is the Shi clan." He sneered. Suddenly, he clapped his hands and recited slowly, "There is no place in life that is not in Jianghu. Once you enter Jianghu, how can you leave? Corpses pile up to build a mountain of heroes, blood paving the road of heroes. Young brothers die in Jianghu, how can ordinary people be angry? Those who used to laugh in the wind and clouds are now in the bellies of birds and beasts. You have fought for thousands of years. How many heroes have died under your feet? If enemies and relatives are angry, how many lives do you have for revenge? You have killed people for thousands of years. Don't you deserve to die? What are you upset about? What are you sad about? Diwu Qingru sneered. Not completing the mission and making a mistake is a capital crime. If you were a general under my command, you would have been beheaded in public. Now, you two actually came to me to ask for an explanation? The two men gasped for breath and stared at Diwu Qingru. Diwu Qingru said casually, "You are all experts. I can't afford to use your help. Please leave here. I won't send you off." Diwu Qingru was not angry. He indeed had some thoughts of breaking off the cooperation. Because from such cooperation, Diwu Qingru could not see any hope for the Diwu clan. You have offended everyone. Even if I can revive the Diwu clan, even if I can subdue most of the people here, the evidence is in your hands. Once you are exposed, the entire Diwu clan will die without a burial place. In this way, won't I, Diwu Qingru, become your puppet? If these people had done as he instructed and only injured but not killed, Diwu Qingru could have continued. And in that way he would have made the situation more dependent on him. They would be completely united against a common enemy. He would have created a mountain-like pressure and controlled everyone in his hands. But Shichishu was dead. The plan was completely scrapped. Now the only thought left was revenge. Diwu Qingru could not make use of this tyrannical emotion at all. In particular, Xiao Jingyan, who had just escaped death, was in charge of it. Moreover, Shichishu was different from Lan Mofeng. The Lan clan was gone, and Lan Mofeng was a lone official with nowhere to go. However, behind these Shi clan troops, there was still a huge clan supporting them. They would not be driven into a corner. Of course, Diwu Qingru had other plans. If they only wanted to make use of him, then they would probably give up after today. He was not deeply involved in the things that happened these few days. Even if he was exposed, he could very well deny it and withdraw. But if they really wanted to help the Diwu clan, then, after today, the real landlord should show himself. The two men in white were dumbfounded at once. If the two of them went back now, they would definitely be skinned alive by the Dharma Supreme. Although the two of them were sorrowful and angry, there was nothing they could do to Diwu Qingru. They humbled themselves for a long time. Diwu Qingru did not say a word. There was coldness between his eyebrows. The two of them had no choice but to leave. Watching the two of them disappear, Diwu Qingru sighed softly and shook his head. It was already midnight. But the heavy snow outside was still falling. Ever since Diwu Qingru came here, the snow here seemed to have not stopped for a day. In fact, in this northwest area, since ancient times, it had never snowed in a year. It seemed that it had not been more than 2 months. Diwu Qingru waited until this moment and finally exhaled. He did not know whether it was relief or regret. He sat down cross-legged to cultivate and rest. At this moment, a voice suddenly said, "You are too reckless to chase them away." Diwu Qingru was not shocked but happy. He said indifferently, "Are you finally willing to show yourself?" That voice said, "Are you looking for me?" Diwu Qingru was silent for a moment and said, "Give me a reason. Otherwise I will never cooperate. I, Diwu Qingru, would rather live an ignoble existence and plan for the future. But I will never be a puppet." That person was silent for a moment and said, "You are a direct descendant of the Diwu clan. Do you recognize this item?" As he said, a jade token appeared on the table in front of Diwu Qingru. A drop of blood flew over and dripped on the jade token. The jade token lit up in front of the light and gave off a sparkling glow. A line of words slowly appeared in the glow. Number 1 in the human world, vast sky. Number 2 in the human world, vast earth. Number 3 in the human world, wind, cloud, water and fire. Number 4 in the human world, gods and demons. I am number 5 in the human world. Diwu Qingru's whole body shook. For the first time the color in his eyes changed. This was the life token of the Diwu clan. It had always been the supreme treasure of the Diwu clan. Only the divine spirit and bloodline of the direct descendant of the Diwu clan could activate it. Ever since the clan was destroyed, its whereabouts were unknown. But now it had appeared here. And this drop of blood could actually activate the illusion of the life token. It was definitely a direct descendant of the Diwu clan. This life token listed heaven, earth, gods, demons and nature as the top 4 in the world. Only the Diwu clan was listed as number 5. In fact, it meant that although they were surnamed Diwu, they were actually number 1 in the world. Diwu Qingru stood up and tidied his clothes. Then he bowed respectfully 3 times to the life token. Then he stood up and said, "May I ask who you are?" That voice was somewhat disappointed. He said, I am number 5. Now, are you still going to reject my help? On the other side, after a night of rapid marching, Chu Yang and the others had already reached the place where Lang Yilong had died in battle. After resting for a while here, Chu Yang bowed to the heavens. He couldn't help but think of Wei Wuyan again. His eyes dimmed for a long time. Mo Tianji said, Chu Yang will split up here. Split up? Chu Yang was stunned. Yes. We'll split into 3. The first, I'll bring Ao Shiyun and Rui Badong to the Li clan. Mo Tianji said steadily, you'll bring Dong Wushang, Qingwu and Lei to cooperate with me outside. The third, Gu Duxing will bring GMO, Luo Kadi and Xie Danxiong. Wait for an opportunity and act independently. Duxing must remember that you're not allowed to make a move at any other time. Only when the 2 clans are at war can you make a move. Retreat after 1 strike. It's the same every time we go to war. There's no problem with us splitting up. But isn't it too risky for the 3 of you to enter the Li clan? Asked Chu Yang. Mo Tianji smiled. There's definitely no risk at all. And the Li clan is too weak now. If they lack a strategist, once Diwu Qingru really launches an attack, they'll probably be depleted in a short time. So I have to go. This great battle is also what we're trying to buy time for. We have to borrow their strength this time. Mo Tianji said calmly, what you have to pay attention to is the movements of the Lan clan, Shao clan and Shi clan. I'll constantly create opportunities for you. Chu Yang nodded and said, okay. Each of them was given an incomplete version of the heavy pill to carry with them in case of emergency. Mo Tianji smiled gently and elegantly. If the Li clan isn't at the end of its rope, don't contact me. I have the confidence to turn at least half of the thousands of supreme martial artists here into bones. I really want to go all out today, but I really can't. I can only do 2 things. Rest up and go all out tomorrow. GRQ. Chapter 1444. The Li clan was in a state of misery. Smart Kids Remember Network Super Fast Hands Update. During this period of time, the enemy's attacks were not powerful, but they were dense. There was almost no loophole to be exploited. The Li clan was forced to retreat bit by bit, while the enemy advanced steadily step by step. The enemy came slowly but with a mountain-like pressure. The Li clan did not lose many men during this period of time, but the pressure they were under was unprecedented, almost causing them to break down. From the enemy's actions, they could clearly feel the wisdom of the enemy's commander. The enemy was fighting with intelligence. So many people in the Li clan racked their brains, but they could not figure out the enemy's plan at all. Step by step they were led by the nose by the enemy. Every step the enemy took was to attack the enemy's vital points. After they dealt with the enemy's attacks, they would always suffer losses and be forced to give up some territory. Slowly, the 30,000 miles of territory had shrunk by a small half. The most terrifying thing was that the enemy did not suffer any losses at all. They were still advancing at a constant speed. At this moment, these arrogant Jianghu experts finally realized the importance of intelligence, wisdom, and scheming. It turned out that a high level of cultivation did not mean anything. Although all the intelligence in the northwest had reached here very accurately, they could not figure out the direction of the enemy's attack. When faced with such an enemy, no matter how high your cultivation was, you would only end up being played like a fool. The Li clan was in a gloomy state. Li Wubwa sat in the clan's temporary meeting hall, his brows tightly knitted. As he listened to the discussions and arguments of the clan experts below, he felt more and more powerless. How could a bunch of martial artists compare to a super military advisor? Everyone below was in a heated discussion. They were also at their wits' end. At the end of the discussion, everyone unanimously agreed, if we really have to deal with it, we have to maintain the situation. Then we must have a genius military advisor to lead us, and he must be better than the enemy's commander. Only then can he lead us to victory. But after this conclusion, everyone became even more dispirited. This was easy to say, but there was no one in the entire heavens who could be better than the enemy's current commander. Now, everyone finally knew how terrifying Diwu Qingru was. Originally, they heard that Diwu Qingru had achieved great feats in the lower 3 heavens with his bare hands, and intimidated the world. Everyone just took it as a joke and felt a sense of superiority, like an elephant watching ants fighting for power. But now, everyone felt ashamed. Suddenly, there is one person who can keep Diwu Qingru in check. Li clan's Grand Duke Li Ju suddenly said. Everyone was shocked. Who is it? It is King of Hell Chu. Li Ju's eyes lit up. Only King of Hell Chu, who defeated Diwu Qingru in the lower 3 heavens, can do this. Let us out of this predicament. King of Hell Chu. Everyone suddenly realized. It was as if the clouds had parted to reveal the blue sky. But where exactly is this King of Hell Chu? Li Wubo frowned, his eyes flickering. It said that Chu Yang, who is now being slandered as an extraterrestrial demon, is a heavenly demon. He was King of Hell Chu back then. Li Ju said in a deep voice. He was from the Chu clan in the southeastern part of the upper three heavens. Right now it's in the upper three heavens. I'll invite him here immediately. A white-bearded supreme martial artist stood up. That's right. Although we haven't reached the end of our rope yet, under the threat of the other party, we are like a group of fish being gradually driven into a big net. We don't have the ability to resist at all. Inviting King of Hell Chu at such a time. It's also a brilliant move when we have no other way out. However, firstly, the outside has already been sealed. How can we charge out? Secondly, is King of Hell Chu willing to come? Li Wubo frowned. These 2 points are very important. It shouldn't be difficult to tear a hole in the enemy's encirclement with a team of experts, said that supreme martial artist. Then what about when we return? How do we enter when we return? And, if the other party pursues us, do we have the confidence to return? Even if we can return and charge in by then, will the Li clan still be around? Li Wubo snorted. Besides, where is King of Hell Chu now? How long will it take to get out? How long will it take to find him? How long will it take for him to return? Everyone was disheartened at once. The few possibilities that Li Wubo had mentioned were real. Other things aside, the Li clan couldn't afford to delay any longer. Even if King of Hell Chu agreed to come and help, it would take at least 2 months for him to come and go. After 2 months, it was still uncertain whether the Li clan would still exist in this world. Everyone's faces were full of worry. Could it be that they could only wait helplessly for death? Li Xiongtu, who was present at the meeting, frowned and said, King of Hell Chu may have this ability. However, as far as I know, there's another person who has more confidence in defeating Diwu Qingru. It's a pity that that person is in the upper three heavens. Everyone was shocked. They asked, who is it? If the King of Hell Chu that Li Ju mentioned only gave them hope, then the person recommended by Li Xiongtu would definitely make them go crazy with joy. Because Li Xiongtu's identity was different. The person he recommended, the wise one, was definitely the mastermind of tribulation. The masterminds of tribulation in the past were all invincible in the world with their supreme wisdom. This was something that everyone in the world knew. Li Xiongtu shook his head and said, it's a pity that that person is too far away to put out a nearby fire. Everyone was about to ask. Right at this moment, a long roar suddenly shook the sky from afar. A clear voice said, Li Xiongtu. This voice was like the long roar of a golden dragon in the sky. Although it was very far away and very weak, it was clear and natural and proud as it was in front of them. All the supreme martial artists in the hall were shocked. Who was calling Li Xiongtu's name? Could it be that the other party had already launched a large-scale attack? Li Xiongtu, who was present at the meeting, was also confused. Who's calling my name? And, this voice seems a little familiar. Seeing that everyone had turned to look at him, Li Xiongtu's rough face revealed some confusion. He said, I don't know who it is, but it sounds a little familiar. Everyone's expression was shocked. Sounds a little familiar? Could it be? Li Wubo's eyes suddenly lit up. He shouted, who's there? The voice from earlier didn't speak again. But another voice shouted, ask your people to stop. What an idiot. If we were enemies, we would have killed him. If we're enemies, why would we be shouting here? What followed was intense battle cries getting closer and closer. It seemed that the Li clan brothers outside couldn't stop the other party at all. Li Wubo shouted, stop it. Invite the guests in. Li Xiongtu's expression changed. He said, I can tell, so it's them. As he spoke, a strange expression appeared on his face. It seemed to be resentment but also nostalgia and also a little sad. Them? This word really made one's imagination run wild. Everyone knew that Li Xiongtu was one of the tribulations. Could it be that the other brothers of the tribulations had finally arrived? No one said anything. But the next moment, regardless of whether they were 8th grade or 7th grade supreme martial artists, all of them stood up abruptly. Their eyes were burning. They looked at the entrance of the hall. Although the other party's voice could be heard, it was very far away, at least 100 miles away. But now, everyone seemed to be unable to wait. Once they stood up, no one sat down again. After 30 minutes, someone finally came to report. Reporting to Clan Master, there are 3 people outside who claim to be young Master Xiongtu's friends. Li Wubo was overjoyed. With a wave of his hand, he said, quickly invite them in. Everyone raised their heads and looked at them. From afar there were figures approaching rapidly. After the Li clan's property was destroyed, they were besieged. They didn't have time to build a new base, so they simply used the eternal ice and snow to build an ice palace with the supreme martial artist's power. Now, it looked sparkling and translucent, as if it was even more imposing than the original property. In front of the ice palace, 3 people walked in slowly. All 3 of them were dressed in white, tall and slender. As they looked around, they were in high spirits. There was a kind of boundless atmosphere like, in the vicissitudes of the world, phoenixes reside. In the turbid world, dragons fly in the sky. The 3 of them walked side by side. Far away in the meeting hall, everyone felt the aura of these 3 people at the same time. At this moment, even though they hadn't met them in person, even 8th grade supreme martial artists felt a chill in their hearts. These 3 young people had such a strong aura. Every one of them was a dragon among men, a peerless genius. If there were any doubts before, now there was no doubt at all. Because no matter which one of these 3 people, be it in terms of demeanor, elegance, aura or cultivation, they were all far superior to the number 1 duke of the Li clan, Li Ju. If they weren't robbers, who else could have such an aura? Li Wubua's eagle-like eyes flashed, but they were filled with ecstasy. Our Li clan has finally seen the light of day. Reinforcements are here. And it's a character that has been talked about in the heavens for 10,000 years. Tribulation. Everyone, follow me to welcome the distinguished guests. Li Wubua said in a deep voice. However, everyone could tell that the voice of the clan leader, who usually didn't show his emotions on his face, was actually trembling slightly at this moment. Everyone stood up together. They walked out of the hall and stood at the stone steps in front of the hall. With a flash of white, the 3 young people appeared 500 feet away. Seeing so many people lined up to welcome them, they seemed to be stunned for a moment. Then they walked over slowly. They finally met. The dragon-like Tribulation brothers. All the supreme martial artists looked up and saw that these 3 people were all handsome, full of energy, and walking with a majestic gait. Among the 3 of them, although the one on the left moved with ease, there was a natural aura of a dragon flying in the sky. As for the one on the right, although he was walking with 2 legs, when everyone looked out, they could clearly feel that he was a phoenix soaring in the clear sky. One of them walked in the midst of the dancing dragons and dancing phoenixes. However, his aura was not suppressed at all. In fact, it was even more like the sun. Although he was gentle and elegant, his every move naturally revealed a kind of, I have the world in my hands, I have the world in my hands. He was full of confidence. It was as if in front of this person, all the difficulties in the world didn't exist. I'm unusually happy today, so I'm in a very good state. Ha ha ha. Chapter 1445. Li Wubua's face was a little red. He forced himself to calm down and asked in a low voice, Xiongtu, these 3 people? Do you know them? Li Xiongtu's face was also a little red from excitement. Clan Master, they are the people I mentioned who can help the Li clan. Li Wubua no longer had any doubts. Smart kids remember network super fast hands. Everyone was sizing up the 3 people who were walking slowly toward them. There was a look of admiration in everyone's eyes. Just the 3 of them, facing dozens of high-level supreme martial artists, walked over calmly and confidently. Li Xiongtu looked at the 3 of them, his heart surging with emotions. He couldn't help but think of the day in the 3rd heavens. At that time, although he was weak, he didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. At that time he had interacted with all 3 of them. In the beginning their relationship was very peaceful. Then the desire to win slowly grew. In the end he even fought with these people at the Lake of Despair. Thinking of the battle at the Lake of Despair, Li Xiongtu thought of Dong Wuxiang. Then his battle intent rose and a heroic aura suddenly rose. He couldn't help but step out of the crowd and shout, So it's you guys. Where's Dong Wuxiang? His voice was like thunder. Ao Shiyun, Mo Qinji and Rui Budong were also sizing up these people in front of them. Li Xiongtu stepped out of the crowd. Instantly, it was as if a mountain was standing in front of the 3 of them, majestic and imposing. At this moment, the 3 of them felt a sense of familiarity. Why does this guy look so much like Dong Wuxiang? Mo Qinji smiled and said, Xiongtu, long time no see. Do you only remember Dong Wuxiang? So many brothers. Don't you recognize all of them? Li Xiongtu snorted and said, Of course I recognize all of you. Mo Qinji's, so many brothers, made the joy on the faces of the Li clan members increase by another notch. Only then did Mo Qinji turn around and look at Li Wubua. He smiled and said, This elder's authority is heavy. Controlling the wind and clouds, could you be the clan master of the Li clan? Since Li Wubua had guessed that the other party could be Tribulation, He didn't dare to hesitate. He hurriedly smiled and said, "That's me. May I ask the three of you?" Mo Tianji said, "I'm Tianji. This is Ao Shiyun and Rui Badong." He smiled sadly and said, "The blockade outside is very serious. The other brothers are still trying to break through. Boss was afraid that you guys wouldn't be able to hold on, so he gathered his strength. He sent the three of us in first." Li Wubo was so agitated that his entire face was flushed red. He said, "It's good that you're in, it's good that you're in." He was actually stuttering a little. He understood in his heart who Mo Tianji was talking about. He should be the Calamity Sword Master. Li Ju stood behind him. He looked at these three people and said somewhat enviously, "Diwu Qingrou's army has sealed and besieged us. It's impossible to guard against it. I'm afraid that only King of Hell Chu can contend against it in this world. Do the three of you have the confidence to keep Diwu Qingrou in check?" Li Wubo gave him a sidelong glance indicating for him not to spout nonsense. Li Xiongtu finally reacted and said, "Clan Lord, this is the person I mentioned just now who can contend against Diwu Qingrou. This is Mo Tianji. He was known as the master of the abacus and ghostly calculation. He had always been brilliant in his calculations, taking every conceivable possibility into account. He had never been defeated. With him here, we won't be at a disadvantage in terms of military strength, but at least we won't be at a disadvantage in terms of strategy." Li Xiongtu had just finished speaking. The expressions of all the supreme martial artists of the Li clan changed. 4 words appeared in their minds at the same time: calamity strategist. Instantly they were overjoyed. Mo Tianji smiled. "This is precisely the reason why I'm here. However, whether we can withstand it or not still depends on the martial strength here. After all, if our strength is too weak, no matter how resourceful we are, it won't be of any use." Li Wubo heaved a long sigh of relief and said, "Don't worry about this, Brother Mo. Although we can't match up to the other party in terms of strength, we won't be too far apart." Then he extended his hand and said, Please come into the main hall to talk." Mo Tianji nodded, his smile as gentle as spring water. "I'll do as you say." His smile made one feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. Accompanied by everyone else, everyone entered the main hall and took their seats. After chatting idly for a while, they returned to the main topic. "May I ask Clan Lord Li, how much strength does the Li clan have now?" Mo Tianji asked slowly, "What are the losses?" Before Li Wubo could say anything, Mo Tianji had already continued, "What I want is accurate data. This is related to the strategic deployment and survival of the clan. This was to say, if you want me to help you, you have to tell me the truth." Li Wubo nodded and said, "Right now the Li clan has about 75% of its strength. We've already lost 25%. Moreover, the clans in the periphery have all been wiped out. However, our high-end strength hasn't been damaged." Mo Tianji nodded. 75%. This number was pretty much what he had estimated. Next, it would depend on the specific deployment and the number of high-end combat strength. Among the 8th grade supreme martial artists, there are still 1. 2 of them are at the peak of 8th grade supreme martial artists. 2 of them are at the beginner level of 8th grade supreme martial artists. 11 of them are at the peak level of 8th grade supreme martial artists. 1 of them is at the high level and 3 of them are at the beginner level. As for the 2nd grade supreme martial artists, Li Wubo listed out the Li clan's strength in detail. In total, there are 113 experts above the level of supreme martial artist. Other than that, there are also more than 200 martial saint experts. In addition, after the Dharma Supreme passed down the order, there are 2 secret troops set up. There are a total of 300 people. There are 13 supreme martial artist experts. However, their cultivation isn't very high. The highest is only at the 4th grade. The rest are all at the martial saint level. However, they are all above the middle grade martial saint level. At this point, Mo Tianji raised his head. Frowning, he asked, "What about the middle grade supreme martial artists of the Li clan?" Li Wubo hesitated for a moment before he said, "The Li clan only has the elder master and his personal guard, who is also his sworn brother. They are both middle grade supreme martial artists. The elder master is at the peak of middle grade supreme martial artist level. That guard is at the same level. However, the 2 of them," Mo Tianji nodded. "They might not make a move?" Li Wubo smiled bitterly. "Perhaps when the clan reaches a critical moment of life and death, the 2 elder masters will make a move." Mo Tianji let out an "oh," and lowered his head as if he was thinking about something. No one dared to disturb him. After a long while, Mo Tianji said, "Clan leader Li, please arrange accommodations for the three of us. We haven't seen Xiongtu for a long time. Can we just stay together? Everyone was stunned. Are you going to sleep just like that after asking for an explanation? Li Wubua said, Brother Imo. Cough cough. The problem with this countermeasure, during this period of time, the Li clan was really scared. Diwu Qingrou's unpredictable schemes had really scared them to the core. As for the planning, Mo Tianji smiled slightly and said, regarding this, no one has confidence in me for the time being. I can only be bold enough to take command once during the next operation and see the results. Also, clan leader Li, please send someone to send the topographic map of the northwest region to where I'm staying. All right. Li Wubua agreed immediately. At once, he felt as if he had eaten a calming pill. With tribulation here, no matter who won or lost in the future. But for the time being, he only felt that half of the pressure on him had been relieved. Instantly, he felt much more relaxed. At the same time, a thought suddenly arose in his mind. If one of tribulation's people actually died in the hands of the 8 great clans, then, right now, the 4 of them were in the Li clan. And the most important one was the sword master. But he wasn't here. This was a heaven-sent opportunity. This thought flashed across his mind. While he was thinking about this, Mo Tianji was paying attention to his expression. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, like the spring breeze. When he sent Mo Tianji and the other 2 out to rest, Li Wubua finally couldn't help but ask through telepathy, May I ask, Brother Mo, what did the sword master say? Mo Tianji was silent for a moment. Then he also replied through telepathy, the sword master didn't say anything. Li Wubua's heart sank. He forced a smile and said, Sorry to trouble you, brother. Mo Tianji nodded lightly. After Mo Tianji and the rest went out, Li Wubua heaved a sigh of relief. Then he said, 3rd elder. 5th elder, Ju Batian and the rest of the elders, please follow me. Everyone acknowledged his words and followed Li Wubua into the room. The rest of the people knew that these few leaders had something important to discuss. It was very likely that it was about how to cooperate with tribulation. Thus they hurriedly took their leave. Why are you here to help me? After returning to Li Xiongtu's small courtyard, Li Xiongtu finally asked this question. His eyes were filled with confusion. When he was in the hall just now, he was too embarrassed to ask this question. The other party was here for Li Xiongtu. If Li Xiongtu asked this question again, the confidence of the Li clan would be greatly affected. Mo Tianji said indifferently, helping you is also for the sake of gaining experience. Li Xiongtu snorted. He didn't believe it. Mo Tianji raised his head and looked at him. He said through telepathy, Li Xiongtu, no matter why we're helping you, the Li clan only has a little hope after we came. I hope you can cooperate with me and stabilize the situation first. If you reveal what happened back then, we'll turn around and leave. Let's see if the Li clan can withstand the siege of the 8 super clans and the law enforcement officers. Li Xiongtu's eyes sharpened as he glared at Mo Tianji. Mo Tianji snorted and sat down calmly. Li Xiongtu stared at him for a long while before he finally sat down. He asked dully, What's Dong Wuxiang's cultivation level now? Rui Badong chuckled. A little higher than you. Li Xiongtu's eyes were filled with fervent fighting spirit. A young lady in white came out with tea. Li Xiongtu revealed a gentle expression and said, You can just let the servants do it. Do you need to come out personally? The young lady in white said, He's your friend. Of course I have to serve him. She smiled and bowed to Mo Tianji and the other 2. Hello. Mo Tianji and the other 2 stood up at the same time. They smiled and said, Hello, sister-in-law. You're indeed an outstanding beauty. Li Xiongtu was instantly furious. You're not even older than me. If you want to call me sister-in-law, you should call me sister-in-law. Rui Badong laughed. Sister-in-law is still the best. It's so easy to say. As he spoke, he shamelessly walked over. Sister-in-law, you see, I'm still single. Do you have any good sisters? Let me introduce you. Welcome. Your support is my greatest motivation. RV. Chapter 1446. Meng Huanhuan couldn't help but smile with a red face. She instantly believed that these people were indeed Li Xiongtu's friends. They were so familiar with each other. She said shyly, We haven't gotten married yet. What she meant was that it wasn't appropriate to call her sister-in-law or sister-in-law. Ao Shiyun shouted, Li Xiongtu, you idiot. Why don't you hurry up and marry such a beauty? I'm envious just looking at her. Li Xiongtu instantly became nervous. He stood in front of Meng Huanhuan and said, Ao Shiyun, you bastard. You already have so many wives. He whispered to Meng Huanhuan, "Hurry up and go in. These people aren't good people." Ao Shiyun and the other two laughed. They were extremely happy. Seeing Meng Huanhuan leave, Li Xiongtu said, "Follow me." He turned around and left. Mo Tianji and the other two followed closely behind him and walked into a secret room in the courtyard. This secret room belongs to the Li clan. Li Xiongtu said in a low voice, "There used to be surveillance equipment, but I destroyed it." The clan didn't say anything. Mo Tianji chose a chair and sat down. "What do you want to say?" Li Xiongtu turned around and said slowly, "I don't know why you're here. But I know that you, Mo Tianji, definitely don't have good intentions." Mo Tianji smiled and didn't say anything. Ao Shiyun and Rui Butong were amused. It seemed that Mo Tianji's treachery was deeply rooted in everyone's hearts. Even the honest Li Xiongtu knew that he didn't have good intentions. The Li clan is in a precarious situation now. The only one who can barely turn or maintain this situation is you. Li Xiongtu said, "On this point I don't deny it. However, I want to know, what exactly do you want? If you just want to use all the value of the Li clan and destroy the Li clan after that, then I'll send you away now. Since it's going to be destroyed sooner or later, then the process is the same." Li Xiongtu said, "Seeing that we're acquaintances, I won't make things difficult for you." Mo Tianji smiled lightly. "I really want to help the Li clan tide over this crisis. Although we have our own reasons for doing so, if the Li clan is still gone in the end, it won't do us any good." Li Xiongtu revealed a cold smile and said, "Actually, you are the real tribulation, right?" Mo Tianji was startled. Then he smiled and said, "Everyone says that Li Xiongtu is simple-minded. It seems that the rumors are not true." Li Xiongtu said angrily, "I don't have any intentions. It was only recently that someone came to ask me about this. I finally understood that the reason why my family treated me so well in the past was because they suspected that I was one of the tribulations." Mo Tianji sneered, "Are you denying it?" "Yes, I deny it." Li Xiongtu said angrily, "I'm not, so why can't I deny it?" Mo Tianji sneered, "That's right. Does anyone believe it?" "No." Li Xiongtu said dejectedly. He suddenly turned around like a whirlwind. "All of this is because of you. Or rather, because of you. Other than you, no one else would have set up such a sinister trap at that time. I don't care how much I deny it now. No one will believe it." Li Xiongtu said bitterly, "It's only been 3 days since I found out about all this. But I can still guess that you've planned for so long in advance. You definitely wouldn't watch the Li clan be destroyed. Now you're here indeed." He sneered. He looked at Mo Tianji with his sharp eyes and said sarcastically, "And you're here as the savior of the world." Mo Tianji suddenly felt a strong aura coming toward him. "You're shameless." Mo Tianji and the other two were surprised. They didn't expect Li Xiongtu to have such deep feelings for the Li clan. Li Xiongtu took a deep breath and said, "The Li clan has nurtured me. I must repay this kindness. If you want to use the Li clan and hurt the Li clan, you'll have to do it over my dead body." Mo Tianji's expression gradually became serious. He said, "I can't promise anything. But if you insist, I'll try my best. There's a good outcome. I'll make sure the Li clan doesn't suffer so much." Li Xiongtu looked at him seriously for a while and said, "I believe you." A strange light flashed in Mo Tianji's eyes. He said, "You're so loyal to the Li clan, but the Li clan might not really trust you, right?" Li Xiongtu said angrily, "What are you talking about? The Li clan has been very kind to me. Almost all of their precious resources have been provided to me. Everyone can see how much they value me. Maybe it's because of benefits, but they're doing this because I, Li Xiongtu, am a family. What do you know? Don't try to use your petty heart against me." Mo Tianji let out a long sigh. He actually felt a little helpless. He looked at Li Xiongtu with pity in his eyes. "The Li clan has treated me so well. I'll repay them with my life." Li Xiongtu's strong body stood straight. Under his thick eyebrows, his eyes were bright. "As a man, I should remember the source and repay kindness. Only then can I live up to my pride and live up to the world. I have no regrets in life or death." Mo Tianji let out a heavy sigh in his heart. Li Xiongtu was undoubtedly a heroic figure. However, his overly upright character had doomed him to tragedy this time. Could it not be reversed? In the secret chamber of the Li clan, Li Wubo's expression was unusually excited. Looking at the 10 people in front of him, he said, "This time, although the Li clan has fallen into an unprecedented crisis, there's also an unprecedented opportunity that has descended upon the Li clan." Li Ju frowned. You seem to have understood something. The others didn't say anything. They just looked at Li Wubua. Tribulation, there are 4 people in our clan now. Furthermore, they're clearly here to help us. We have to seize this opportunity. Perhaps the Li clan won't exist after the battle in the northwest. However, this is still our chance. When Li Wubua said this, he panted rather agitatedly. That elder asked hesitantly, "What do you mean, clan leader?" A ray of light flashed across Li Wubua's eyes. He said, "What I mean is, tribulation. As the name suggests, there's only one person. However, it can only be one person. In the past, there weren't any incidents of sudden deaths. However, no matter what, even if one of them dies, one of them has to become a tribulation. I don't think anyone will deny this." Li Wubua's eyes flashed coldly. Yes, logically speaking, that should be the case. Everyone nodded slowly. If that Ao Shiyun or Rue Badong were to die in the battle with the 8 super clans, what would happen? What will happen? Li Wubua asked viciously. Everyone frowned. They couldn't help but start to consider. "Father, this must not happen." Li Ju hurriedly said, "These 2 people must not die." Li Wubua looked at his son in surprise. He didn't expect that the first person to jump out to object would be his son, who was the most passionate about this matter. Firstly, they're here to help us. If they die, even if we didn't set them up, they'll still suspect us. They'll take their anger out on us, Li Ju said. Li Wubua nodded slowly. Secondly, tribulation can't have people with the same surname. Since there's already Li Xiongtu, there can't be a second person with the surname Li. Li Ju's eyes flashed coldly. "You mean?" Li Wubua asked. "What I mean is, although Li Xiongtu also has the surname Li, but at the end of the day, he's not a member of the Li clan. If the Li clan is really destroyed, Li Xiongtu can establish a new Li clan. However, that won't be our Li clan. However, this has been passed down since ancient times. The surname Tribulation has been decided since long ago." Li Ju pursed his thin lips, revealing a cruel arc. Now that the Tribulation Sword Master has already obtained the 7th fragment of the Tribulation Sword, it's already confirmed that he belongs to the Li clan. Therefore this Li cannot be changed. Li Wubua nodded slowly. His eyes were deep. "Since that's the case, why don't we bring forward the plan that you mentioned previously, father?" Li Ju gritted his teeth and said word by word, "Let Li Xiongtu die." When these words were spoken, everyone's body trembled as they raised their heads to look at him. Brilliant plan. The elder who spoke earlier praised. Li can't be changed, but people can be changed. This can be considered as cheating. Li Wubua pondered. "Father, ever since Li Xiongtu came to the upper 3 heavens and joined the clan, wasn't this what we wanted? We gave him all kinds of preferential treatment and let him enjoy all the resources to his heart's content. Now it's time for him to do something for the clan. Even if it means taking his life, it's only right and proper." Li Ju said viciously, "A fat pig that has been fattened up, shouldn't we slaughter it? Could it be that we're willing to watch this person who doesn't belong to the Li clan sacrifice our entire clan just because of the word Li? We're not going to have a share in his glorious achievements?" Li Wubua looked at everyone, seemingly unsure of what to do. "Elders, what you mean is..." Everyone's eyes revealed a fervent glow. "Eldest young master is right." "Third elder? You mean?" Li Wubua looked at the 3rd elder, Li Qinglu. The white-bearded Li Qinglu had a conflicted look on his face. However, after thinking for a long time, he said slowly, "Even fertile water should not fall into the hands of outsiders, what more when it's an important matter of the clan's bloodline inheritance." Li Wubua took a deep breath and said, "Since that's the case, then this matter is settled. However, this matter had to be done secretly and seamlessly. If we give ourselves away, I'm afraid we'll go for wool and come home shorn. That would be really bad." Of course. Everyone rubbed their palms together. During this period of time, you should interact with them more. You must build a relationship with them." Li Wubua said calmly. "Yes." Li Ju stood up abruptly, his eyes shining with excitement. "I'll think of a way to send Li Xiongtu away." Or, Li Wubua's eagle-like eyes flashed sharply. He said slowly, "Yes, he has used so many of our Li clan's resources. Now that his motive has been revealed and the tribulation has been confirmed, the surname Li can't be changed. It's time for him to pay the price." The next day, Mo Tianji was still studying the map and flipping through the information about the various snowy mountains, memorizing them one by one. At this moment, someone came to report, "Diwu Qingru has launched another attack. This time, the 3 super clans are advancing from 3 different directions. The clan leader has invited Mr. Mo over for a meeting. Mo Chinji kept the map and closed his eyes to think for a while. He murmured, so fast. Together with Ao Shiyun and Rue Budong he went out. When he went out he was surprised to find that Li Xiongtu wasn't around. The one waiting outside was the Grand Duke of the Li clan, Li Ju. Where's Li Xiongtu? A gloomy look flashed across Mo Chinji's eyes as he asked calmly. Many people have asked me why I'm so happy, ha. Today I received a call from the captain. This year's old comrades gathering will be held in Lai Wu. Also, the captain said that as long as they're still alive they'll be there. This news made me extremely excited. I was so excited that I opened the window and shouted a few times. Haha, I haven't seen so many brothers since they retired from the army. I can finally see them. The old comrades gathering will be held in May. For this matter, I specially bought a desk calendar and started the countdown. G. Chapter 1447. Today, Li Ju was dressed in snow-white robes. He looked simple and unadorned, but he also had an air of elegance. He stood outside the small courtyard with his hands clasped behind his back. He was tall and straight. Coupled with his sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes, he had a warm smile on his face. He really looked like a talented person. However, Mo Tianji was obviously not interested in Li Ju's attire. What a joke. Mo Tianji had seen many handsome men. Among the brothers, which one of them was not a handsome man? Not to mention there was Xie Dan Xiong, who was so beautiful that he could be described as peerless in his generation. Although Li Ju's looks were not bad compared to Xie Dan Xiong, he was not even close to Gu Du Xing. Not to mention there was also Chu Yang, who boasted that he was the most handsome man in the world. In Mo Tianji's eyes, Li Ju was not even as good-looking as Tan Tan. Therefore, the first thing he asked was about Li Xiongtu's day. Li Ju was obviously prepared for this question. Brother Mo Xiongtu was sent out by the clan to handle some matters. He will be back soon. It was this little brother who volunteered to welcome Brother Mo and the rest to the main hall. Mo Tianji replied with an "oh," and said indifferently, Grand Duke Li is too polite. It's just that I don't know what's so important that you have to disturb our reunion? Li Ju chuckled and answered fluently. He lowered his voice and even winked mysteriously as he said, well, no one can help him. It's Miss Huanhuan's family. Li Xiongtu went to welcome them. Ah, do you understand now? Mo Tianji obviously did not find this joke amusing. His eyes flashed coldly as he said, so Miss Huanhuan also went? Li Ju smiled. That's not it. After all, the two of them are about to get married. Miss Huanhuan's body is not very good. It's better for her to stay here and recuperate. When Brother Xiongtu comes back he will give her a surprise. He blinked his eyes and said, Brother Mo, girls like surprises? Mo Tianji smiled. You really have good intentions. Ah, Li Xiongtu said, Brother Mo please? My father and the others have been looking forward to it. Now let me see Brother Mo's power. With a wave of his hand it would rain. Defeat Diwu Qingro. Mo Chinji took 2 steps forward and said, Ao Shiyun, I'm a little worried about Miss Huanhuan being here alone. Why don't you stay and accompany her? Li Ju's face changed slightly as he said, this isn't very good, right? After all, there are differences between men and women. Ao Shiyun laughed heartily and said, Young Master Li, I'm sure you still don't know the feelings between us brothers. Not to mention being in the same courtyard as Miss Huanhuan, even if we were really in the same room, my brother would definitely not have any doubts. Li Ju laughed dryly. He said with some envy, I really envy such a brotherly relationship. Mo Tianji smiled and said, let's go. Li Ju had a feeling that he had nowhere to go and maintained his gentle demeanor. He smiled confidently, Big Brother Mo please? Mo Tianji suddenly stopped and asked with a smile, May I ask how old Duke Li is? Li Ju's face turned ashen as he said, I've wasted 30 years. Mo Tianji indifferently said, Oh, you're 30 and I'm only 22. If we were to go by age I should be calling you uncle. Now that I hear you call me big brother I feel weird. On the side Rue Butong laughed loudly and almost couldn't breathe. A trace of anger flashed in Li Ju's eyes as he said, But Brother Mo's achievements are beyond the reach of those who are tens of thousands of years old. There's no such thing as the beginning and the end of learning. Mo Tianji indifferently said, Yes. On the side Rue Butong laughed loudly, Duke Li, if that's the case, how much better do you think Mo Tianji is than you? At least at the level of a few years? Li Ju suppressed his anger and said, A few years? Isn't that underestimating Brother Mo? In terms of intelligence, Brother Mo's cultivation is at least 10,000 years higher than mine. Everyone knows of Brother Mo's talent, so why do we need to argue? Rui Butong laughed. Since he's more than 10,000 years better than you, then you shouldn't call him Brother Mo. You should call him Ancestor. Ancestor Mo. Li Ju was furious and indifferently said, "May I ask how much is the difference between Brother Rui and Brother Mo?" Rui Butong chuckled. Mo Tianji is far worse than me. At least a few years worse. Mo Tianji nodded. Yes, Butong is much better than me. As for Brother Li, you overestimate me a little. What he meant was, yes, I'm very humble. I'm definitely not more than 10,000 years better than you, but I'm confident that I'm more than 10,000 years better than you. So, it seems reasonable for you to call me Ancestor. Li Ju was naturally not stupid. Of course, he understood the meaning of Mo Tianji's words. A sharp light flashed in his eyes and he secretly swore, "Damn, don't think that you're so great just because you're one of the tribulations. When Li Xiongtu dies and becomes one of the tribulations, see if I can't kill you two bastards." The three of them smiled amiably and walked forward. Rui Butong secretly sent a message to Mo Tianji. "I thought you were going to feign civility?" Mo Tianji sighed. "Li Xiongtu is a hero. Although I want to use him, I can't lose my respect. Furthermore, I would also like to do my best to fight for his wish." He paused and said, "As a person there's always a bottom line." Rui Butong sneered, "But now it seems that your fight is useless." Mo Tianji said calmly, "Even if I can't fight for it, it's better than having a fly following me around every day." Li Ju is very ambitious. It's not too late to feign civility when Li Xiongtu's side develops beyond control. Rui Butong was surprised, "But you and I have already offended Li Ju. When the time comes, how will he?" Mo Tianji sneered, "Li Ju is now a dog. As long as I have meat in my hands, even if I kick him 800 times, when he wants to eat meat, he'll still wag his tail in front of me. He'll come when I summon him and leave when I command him." Rui Butong almost laughed out loud. On the side, Li Ju looked at Rui Butong in surprise. He couldn't help but ask, "Brother Rui, what have you thought of that makes you so happy?" Rui Butong held back his laughter and said, "I thought of a dog I raised when I was young. It was very obedient. Good dog." Li Ju nodded. "Yes, sometimes dogs are more reliable than people." Rui Butong nodded repeatedly, "Yes, yes." Then he sent a message to Mo Tianji. "Guess where they arranged Li Xiongtu to go?" Mo Tianji said, "The mission this time shouldn't be fake. However, as long as Li Xiongtu goes out on a mission once, there will be endless missions waiting for him. One day he will be killed by the Li clan. This is for sure. If Li Ju didn't come today, Li Xiongtu would be fine. But since Li Ju came, it proves that the Li clan has already decided to give up on Li Xiongtu. But why do you want Ao Shiyun to stay?" Rui Butong was confused. "If you want him to die, you must first make him crazy." Mo Tianji sent a message with a serious face. "Meng Huanhuan is Li Xiongtu's weakness. Li Xiongtu may not be in big trouble in the short term. But the Li clan can make a move on Meng Huanhuan at any time. Once Meng Huanhuan dies, Li Xiongtu will definitely collapse. At that time he won't need anyone to frame him. He will fight to the death himself." Rui Butong made an "oh" sound and suddenly understood. Mo Tianji said indifferently, "However, the more despicable and shameless the Li clan is, the more I like it. Because that way I can make use of them without any psychological pressure." Rui Butong said fiercely, "Let these bastards die." Mo Tianji nodded indifferently. "That's for sure." When Ao Shiyun walked in, Meng Huanhuan was embroidering a handkerchief. Ao Shiyun stood 5 feet away and admired it. He said, "Sister-in-law is really clever." Meng Huanhuan made an "ah" sound and stood up. "Brother Ao didn't go with you?" Ao Shiyun smiled. "I'm very tired. I need to rest." Meng Huanhuan said, "I see. I'll go and serve you tea." Ao Shiyun said, "There's no need." Then, as if he thought of something, he said, "Sister-in-law is very elegant. One look and I can tell that you're a lady from a respectable family. Who else is in your family?" Meng Huanhuan said, "Brother Ao, you must be joking. I'm just an ordinary girl. I still have my parents at home. The two of them are old and have no cultivation. So they're living outside for the time being." Ao Shiyun said with interest, "It seems that you don't live far away." Meng Huanhuan smiled. "Yes, it's not far. But it's not near either. It's about 150 kilometers away." Ao Shiyun made a sound of acknowledgement and asked in a roundabout way. He seemed to have no intention of doing so. However, Meng Huanhuan had Ao Shiyun's experience. In just a few sentences, Ao Shiyun managed to get all the information out of her. Then Ao Shiyun took his leave and returned to his room to think carefully. However, his supreme martial artist's consciousness covered the entire small courtyard. Ao Shiyun was very clear about his responsibilities. 3 armies? Mo Tianji looked at the map of the enemy's situation in front of him. He looked at the information flying in like snowflakes. He opened the map one by one and a few thin steel needles were nailed together according to their categories. This move alone made Li Wubwa and the others from the Li clan feel a chill in their hearts. It was indeed extraordinary. Mo Tianji had made a move, and the confusing situation had become clear in an instant. The Shi clan is here, the Shao clan is here, and the Qin clan is here. Mo Tianji frowned and said, the Qin clan is alone. However, the Shi clan and the Shao clan are only separated by 2 mountains. And these 3 positions are all guarded by people from the Li clan. Looking at the situation and the momentum, Diwu Qingru probably only wants to uproot one of them. It's definitely impossible for him to uproot all 3 of them. Mo Tianji said thoughtfully. Yes. We're thinking that the other party's target should be one of them. Li Wubwa said, the other party has already used this tactic many times. However, every time we respond we make mistakes. We can't even come into contact with the other party's main force. By the time we realize it, it's already too late. Mo Tianji said indifferently, they can change their tactics at any time. Chapter 1448. Everyone was stunned. The other party's 3 forces shot over like arrows, each with their own target. Just when everyone was in a state of panic, Mo Tianji pointed at the 4th target. The 3 Li clan strongholds, White Snow Cliff, Centipede Ridge and Eagle Distress Peak. As long as they could take down any one of them, they would be able to plant a nail in the heart of the Li clan and gain a firm foothold. From there on, the continuous influx of troops would cause further pressure. However, Mo Tianji was now pointing at the Pear Blossom Slope, which was 1 step ahead of the 3 targets. This place was at the back left, and beside it was an unshakable mountain range. At present it could be said to have no value at all. The Li clan had only sent a few martial saints to do the job. Moreover, compared to the 3 main strongholds, this place was more remote. Get the men ready? Mo Tianji said, at least 10 supreme martial artists. In this battle we have to take down the Shi clan at all costs. Shi clan? Li Wubwa couldn't help but widen his eyes. The Shi clan was on the far right but this place was on the far left. Mo Tianji said, do as I say. Li Wubwa was a little hesitant. He asked, may I ask why, Brother Mo? Mo Tianji said, the loss of those 3 strongholds will cause a tug of war. Both sides will attack and defend with all their might. To the enemy's military advisor, this is equivalent to sacrificing 800 men to kill 1,000 enemies. The enemy's strategy is to boil the frog in warm water. They are also conserving their strength. Therefore they won't choose to fight head-on. And this place is insignificant to both sides. Therefore, even if it is taken over by the enemy, the Li clan won't fight with all their might. When Mo Tianji said this, everyone nodded. Yes, why would they fight with all their might in a place with no value? Mo Tianji casually wrote down the names of 5 places and lined them up on the table. They were slightly disorderly. They were listed in order: Pear Blossom Slope, White Snow Cliff, Centipede Ridge, Eagle Distress Peak, Manta Gorge. But, what if after taking over this Pear Blossom Slope they take over this Manta Gorge? Mo Tianji pointed to another blind spot, Manta Gorge. It was also an insignificant place that wasn't valued. And the Pear Blossom Slope that he pointed out earlier. They were on the left and right, extending inwards. Everyone frowned. If you still can't see it, then, after occupying the Pear Blossom Slope and the Manta Gorge, why don't you immediately attack and occupy this Tao mountain range? Mo Tianji pointed at the enemy in the middle and assumed a posture as if he was going to risk his life to take this stronghold. Centipede Ridge. Everyone's expression changed. After Centipede Ridge was occupied, the 2 originally useless strongholds immediately became sharp and fierce. They became a battle fortress, a triangular battle group. Furthermore, both Baishuya and Yingqiu Peak were being attacked from 2 sides. If these 2 strongholds each guard a clan's elite troops, and then take down Centipede Ridge by force, we will be able to do so. In that case, the 3 points formed a mutual defense. They could advance and attack. If we retreat, we can defend. Moreover, the enemy will have an endless supply of reinforcements. We won't have any way to stop them. In the end, we can only give up the fight for Centipede Ridge. And after giving up, the situation was pressing. There were two strongholds on the left and right of Centipede Ridge, by Shuya and Eagle's Distress Peak. Thus, he fell into an awkward situation where he was surrounded by enemies. He would have to give them up because he couldn't defend them anymore. If he tried to defend them, he would only be sacrificing a lot of lives. That way it would become a meat grinder for the enemy. Therefore, he could only give up. Once he gave up, the enemy would occupy 5 strongholds at once. Thus, he would form a true complete blockade. And the only advantage we have now is, we can still enter and exit from these 5 places. But, after this place is completely sealed, it's like we are being chased from the sea into a pond. Other than retreating in, there's no way out. Mo Tianji took out 2 brushes and placed one on each side. He said, and these 2 mountains, one is next to the Pear Blossom Slope and the other is next to the Manta Gorge. They are both 10,000 zhang tall peaks. Moreover, they are different from other mountain ranges. Even a middle-grade supreme martial artist wouldn't be able to move them. Mo Tianji was a little disdainful. No wonder you were beaten up by Diwu Qingro like this. All of you have pig brains. If he were to discuss these things with Chu Yang, one look would be enough. To think that he would have to give a long explanation to you. Looking at Mo Tianji's posture on the table, everyone's faces were a little ashen. Yes, Mo Tianji's explanation made everyone understand. Everyone was a little dispirited. Not only was the other party advancing step by step, he was also far-sighted. Before the first move was made, he had already foreseen the third, the fifth, and even the final move. And everyone was calculating the motive of the other party's first move. This was the gap. An unbridgeable gap. Could it be that the other party started from the Manta Gorge? The outcome would be the same, said one of the elders. When he said this, Mo Tianji's face twitched. The others looked at this elder as if they were looking at an idiot. The Manta Gorge wasn't the same as the Pear Blossom Slope. That place and the Eagle's Distress Peak were mutually supportive. If they couldn't take it down, it would be a protracted battle. Moreover, they would immediately remind the Li clan to defend the Pear Blossom Slope. If the other party could do such a stupid thing, then they would really be stupider than a pig brain. Arrange for manpower immediately. Arrange for 80 supreme martial artists to come out and pull out the secret troops. Li Wubo made a prompt decision and immediately gave the order. Split into 3 groups. Mo Tianji said, I'll arrange the direction of each group in a while. Li Wubo was already convinced and immediately agreed. The only thing that he didn't understand was what Mo Tianji said about gathering forces to defeat the Shi clan first. Why was he so sure that it was the Shi clan? Right at this moment, 3 invisible falcons flew over. At the same time, the communication jade in the hall also lit up. Li Wubo opened the new intelligence and his expression changed. The other party is changing their formation. Wind and snow. It seems that the 3 groups have inexplicably intertwined. Changing their formation? Mo Tianji took the intelligence and hurriedly glanced at it. Then he closed his eyes. After thinking for a while, he said, gather the groups immediately. I want to arrange for battle. All right. Li Wubo immediately waved his hands. The other party's 3 groups were intertwined this time. If it had been before, the Li clan would have already been busy because the other party's target was even more confusing. It was even harder to grasp which direction the other party was attacking. Only one thing was clear. The other party had already given up on the rightmost side. Only Bai Shuya and Centipede Ridge were left. Mo Tianji and Li Wubo walked out together. For this battle, the Shi clan, Shao clan and the Qin clan. The Qin clan. Both the Shao clan and the Qin clan have high-level supreme martial artists. Xiao Jingyan definitely wants to take revenge now. Therefore his target should be a head-on battle. There are no top experts there to launch a surprise attack on the Pear Blossom Slope. It can be considered a small battle and Xiao Jingyan won't be interested in it. It's also a bit of a waste to send giants like the Shao clan and the Qin clan there. Therefore, the Shao clan and the Qin clan's temporary mission should be to attack the reinforcements. The Shi clan is currently the weakest and doesn't have a leader. Moreover, their desire for revenge is at its strongest and they need substantial battle results to comfort themselves. Therefore, if I were the enemy's general, I would arrange for the Shi clan to attack the Pear Blossom Slope. Occupy the Pear Blossom Slope. There's another point. Diwu Qingru doesn't know that I'm here now. This is my first move. This is also the only time when I have the most advantage. Therefore in this battle, I must mobilize the entire army and catch him off guard. Mo Tianji said, by the time Diwu Qingru realizes that I'm already here, it won't be easy to take advantage of him in the future. Mo Tianji hurriedly stood up and said as he walked out with Li Wubo. So that's how it is. Li Wubo was extremely impressed. Moreover, he was also extremely shocked. So this was a true wise man. In the past he had thought that he was also a talented commander. However, when compared to Mo Tianji, the gap between them was immediately apparent. The gap between them was not just a little bit. Not only did he know the other party's deployment, but he also knew the distribution of troops and strategic objectives. He even deduced the other party's mentality. How could there be a defeat in such a battle? 200 people stood below. In the hall, 2 8th-grade supreme martial artists and 2 7th-grade supreme martial artists immediately stepped forward and stood at the leading positions of their respective teams. Everyone split up. Mo Tianji ordered. The 200 people were divided into 4 teams. One team had 80 people, another had 40 people, one had 50 people and one had 30 people. In total there were 200 people. Including the 4 leaders there were 204 people. The teams of 30 and 40 will combine and head to the Pear Blossom Slope immediately. You must ensure that your whereabouts are concealed. Once you discover the enemy, kill them immediately. It's best if you can lay in ambush outside the Pear Blossom Slope without anyone noticing before the enemy arrives. For this all of you will have to rush. Yes. This team of 80 people will hide in the dark. Do not allow anyone to discover where you are. As long as the other 2 armies of the enemy come to reinforce the Pear Blossom Slope, stop them at all costs. Yes. The team of 50 people will follow behind the team of 80 people within 10,000 feet. You are only allowed to join the battle at the last moment if the situation is critical. Otherwise you will be the reserve team and are not allowed to act rashly. Yes. Mo Tianji did not know the names of the supreme martial artists, but he could not be bothered to remember their names. He only referred to them as team of 50 people and team of 80 people. However, this way it was more direct. The survival of the Li clan can basically be determined in this battle. All of you seniors are also experienced in the martial world. There are some things that I don't need to remind you in detail. Therefore, everyone knows what to do. If any team makes a mistake, you know what to do. Mo Tianji said the last sentence and completed the strategic deployment. Li Wubo stepped forward immediately. With the battle at hand, this clan leader of the Li clan had to say a few words. However, he did not say anything. He only stood in front of the team and gazed at them affectionately. Suddenly, he bent down and kowtowed deeply. Everyone, the Li clan is in your hands. Our ancestors and future generations are in your hands. Even Mo Tianji secretly admired this gesture of bowing to the ground. I need everyone's help with something. Since the 2nd year after I joined the army, perhaps because of the training back then, I developed a tinnitus problem. Usually it's nothing much. Anyway, as long as I'm awake, I can hear the chirping of insects and cicadas. Of course, it wasn't very loud in the beginning. However, since last year, the tinnitus suddenly became serious. After the new year this year, I feel even more miserable. It's as if there are always 10,000 cicadas screaming at the top of their lungs in my ears. Does anyone have any folk prescription for treating tinnitus? Or any other methods? It seems that this thing can't be treated without treatment. Chapter 1449. Pear Blossom Slope. The 72 experts of the Li clan were buried deep in the snow, blocking off all auras. They didn't even reveal their eyes, suppressing all their cultivation, leaving only the most primitive function of their ears to feel. Everyone's heart was filled with a sense of brutality. During this period of time they had been severely suppressed. Now they finally had a chance to counterattack this time. It could be said that for the past 6 months, the Li clan had been so aggrieved that they were about to curse. All of them were powerless. They could only passively take the beating, their eyes red from grievance. Once they engaged in battle, the earth would definitely crack and the mountains would collapse. They would use all their strength. Mo Tianji's brilliant foresight gave them too much confidence. An invincible military advisor. How did they have one too? Damn it. This was an unparalleled confidence. The dejection and despair from the previous period was swept away. In the distance, in the pure white snow, there were white figures advancing rapidly. The 3 teams had already undergone 2 changes in formation, making the situation even more confusing. The targets of the 3 teams became blurred at the same time, making it seem like it was possible to attack here, but it was also very possible to attack there. Even attacking the 3rd target was also a matter of uncertainty. The 3 teams all carried the belief that they would win, and with a posture full of confidence, they charged forward at lightning speed. The distance was about right. 50 miles ahead, the three teams would split up. One team would cut off the connection between Centipede Ridge and Baishuaya as a maneuver. The other team would feign an attack on Baishuaya. These two teams were all bluffing because even if Centipede Ridge and Baishuaya were to be taken down, but under the attacks from three sides, they wouldn't be able to defend. And it was a vital place of the Li clan, so they would definitely fight for it with all their might. And the real sharp sword was aimed straight at Pear Blossom Slope. This operation was named by Diwu Qingru as 3 Swords for Pear Blossom Slope. Sending out so many experts, Diwu Qingru was determined to get this Pear Blossom Slope. Are you ready? The blizzard hit their faces. Xiao Jingyan didn't care at all, his gaze cold as he asked in a deep voice. Almost. Qin Jianlong smiled cruelly. On the Shi clan's side, someone smiled indignantly. The blood of our Shi clan. It won't be wasted. Seniors, thank you for your support. You're welcome. The blood debt of Shi Qishu and his brother is in this battle. Revenge. Xiao Jingyan smiled ruthlessly. Be careful along the way, I wish you success. More than 10 experts of the Shi clan clasped their fists in unison. As they spoke, they had already flown thousands of feet ahead. An ordinary army of the lower three heavens would need at least half a day to cover the distance of 50 kilometers. However, they might not be able to cover it even in a day under such heavy snow. However, under the feet of these experts, it only took half an incense stick's worth of time. Or even less. Split. At Xiao Jingyan's command, the Xiao clan's troops suddenly separated from the main group like a sharp arrow. Split Qin Chen's right. At Qin Jianlong's command, the Qin clan's wind-chasing beasts swept up a whirlwind and snowflakes as they charged forward. Shi clans of clan slope of clan of the of them. Xiao Jingyan's voice was still echoing in the air, and the three teams had already completely separated from each other. Of the like 3 snow-white deadly arrows, they fiercely pierced forward. In the blink of an eye, they had separated by thousands of feet, disappearing from each other's sight. With the speed of lightning, the distance between the three teams grew bigger and bigger. Pear Blossom Slope. Of the Li clan's ambush. An 8th grade supreme martial artist and a 7th grade supreme martial artist looked at each other and began to talk telepathically. They're here. Their target is indeed Pear Blossom Slope. That military advisor Mo is really a god. Nonsense, how can he be the strategist if he's not a god? We also think that we're quite smart. Why aren't we? That's true. But it might not be the Shi clan. If it's really the Shi clan, I'll go back and kowtow to him. I reckon it's very likely. You'll definitely kowtow to him. Then the two of them immediately ordered, the enemy has appeared, prepare for battle. Everyone's fighting spirit was instantly ignited. It's finally here. On the high mountain next to Pear Blossom Slope, the clouds were everywhere and the snow was still thick. Chu Yang, Mo Qingwu, Mo Lei, and Dong Wuxiang were on a prominent cedar tree here, looking down quietly. I still don't understand why you're staying here, boss. Dong Wuxiang was a little dissatisfied. This is obviously a place where even birds don't shit. There are so many vital places where a war could break out, but you just had to choose here. Chu Yang snorted, rolled his eyes and didn't say anything. He knew that Dong Wuxiang was just trying to find something to talk about. Besides, Chu Yang also discovered a problem. As long as Mo Lei was beside him, Dong Wuxiang would be more talkative than usual and would have a desire to express himself. This was applicable to any young man in love. But Chu Yang really didn't expect a blockhead like Dong Wuxiang to have such a reaction. He was secretly happy for him. Looks like Dong Wuxiang is really in love. Mo Qingwu raised her little face. Brother Wuxiang, Chu Yang chose here for a reason. Why don't we make a bet? Dong Wuxiang grinned. What bet? If a war really breaks out here, as Chu Yang said, Brother Wuxiang, you'll lose. Then give me all the inner cores of spirit beasts that you can get in the future. I want to feed them to little Snow, Mo Qingwu said seriously. She had a kind of blind confidence in Chu Yang. If Chu Yang said that there would be a war here, then there would definitely be a war. Dong Wuxiang rolled his eyes and said, future inner cores of spirit beasts? Chu Yang smiled. That's too rigid. Wouldn't you be asking Wuxiang to get the inner cores for you? It's not very good. Let's change it to those within 100 years. Mo Qingwu's rosy little mouth twitched. How ruthless. I actually only want 1 year's, Dong Wuxiang said heartily. No problem. But what if you lose? Mo Qingwu rolled her eyes. What if I lose? Chu Yang said at the side. If Qingwu loses, I'll give you 2 complete versions of the heavy pills. Dong Wuxiang's eyes lit up. Deal? Mo Qingwu pouted. I never go back on my word. I'll bet. Dong Wuxiang was exultant. He didn't care much about himself, but Mo was different. If she had 2 complete versions of heavy pills in her hands, it would be equivalent to Mo having 2 more lives. Let's seal the deal. Mo Qingwu stretched out her palm. Dong Wuxiang couldn't wait to give it a slap. The deal is set. No backing out. Chu Yang smiled and looked at him. Silly boy, you've been fooled. To think that you can't wait to fight for your wife's benefits. Little guy. If it wasn't for this bet, would I have mistreated your wife? But this way. You're young, so be prepared to work for Qingwu for 100 years. Don't bet. Mo who had been paying attention to the outside world, was the first to realize that something was wrong. She hurriedly turned back to stop him. But she just happened to meet Dong Wuxiang's exultant 4 words. The deal is set. No backing out. Mo covered her face with her hands. What kind of blockhead did she find for her husband? He was so excited that he sold himself out. Dong Wuxiang's right hand hadn't returned yet. He just stared blankly below, completely dumbfounded. He turned into a snow sculpture. His big mouth opened and closed, the expression on his face was very interesting. He didn't expect that he would lose the bet right after it was set. There wasn't even any buffer. This was too direct. No wonder Dong Wuxiang couldn't take it. If it were anyone else, they would only be caught in the dark. Looking at his hand that hadn't returned yet, Dong Wuxiang wanted to cry but had no tears. He wished he could chop off his own hand. This was too much, because at this moment, a terrifying murderous aura suddenly rushed up from below. Like a raging sea, it swept across a radius of dozens of miles in an instant. It was the Shi clan. They had officially launched their attack. They were only 5 miles away from Pear Blossom Slope. It was the most suitable time for them to charge. The Shi clan's desire for revenge rose sharply, almost to the point of collapse. They rushed over like a tsunami. Pear Blossom Slope, no matter what, they had to take it down. 17 people swept past like a whirlwind. They were less than 2,000 feet away from Pear Blossom Slope. They could even see a frightened face on Pear Blossom Slope now. Then a sharp roar, not good. Hearing the frightened voice, the Shi clan's faces were filled with cruelty. Not good? This was just the beginning. Everyone's eyes were focused on Pear Blossom Slope. They were about to charge up in one go, right at this moment. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Without any warning, a burst of sword energy flashed and exploded right in front of the Shi clan's troops. At this moment, the Li clan's experts who had been lying in ambush for a long time finally made their move. Moreover, every single one of them had gone all out from the very beginning, using all of their strength. For a moment they were one with their swords, one with their sabers. Some of them even went all out. Caught off guard, the Shi family was still immersed in the pleasure of taking revenge when they were suddenly met with a storm of blows. From the Shi clan's unguarded feet and sides, people in white jumped out one after another. The Shi clan's experts focused all their attention on the Pear Blossom Slope in front of them and started to attack crazily. Ambush. This voice was sharp and shrill. But it was already too late. The Li clan's people who appeared all buried their heads and killed without saying a word. Just one contact and the Shi clan's people were quickly reduced by half. And most of them were seriously injured. The leading 7th grade supreme martial artist was heavily taken care of by an 8th grade supreme martial artist and a 7th grade supreme martial artist. He went all out. His body was like being beaten by a drum. 30 punches, 18 slashes, and 10 kicks. Without making a sound, he scattered in the air like fireworks. Bang. Above, Dong Wuxiang gritted his teeth. Good kill. Good death. This bunch of bastards. They lost 100 years to me in one go. Cough, second update, I apologize again. It's a little late, Mr. Tricky was fighting with me. When I was fully focused on the battle, he suddenly slipped and I stumbled. Snot. But this guy's health is indeed not good recently. He just told me that his cervical vertebra bone hyperplasia. It can't be compared to me who is full of energy, ha. He is embarrassed to say it himself, so I will help him say it here. Everyone please understand. The author's occupational disease is indeed, well, that's all. I hope that if one day I also feel uncomfortable, everyone will understand me. Chapter 1450. The battle was very sudden. So sudden that the Shi clan members couldn't react at all. Before they set off, the military advisor had once said, I'm 70% sure that there won't be many people guarding the Li clan at the Pear Blossom Slope. Moreover, it's still uncertain whether there are supreme martial artists among them. As everyone knew, Commander-in-Chief Diwu Qingru never spoke confidently. When he said he was 10% sure, he could do it. Because he said he was sure. When he said he was 70% sure, it was basically a done deal to others. And this time, the Sure clan members themselves also understood that this operation was purely a decision made by the headquarters to appease their anger and sorrow. Firstly, it allowed the Sure clan members to kill and vent their anger. Secondly, it was also the cheapest credit that would be given to them. In the future, when they annihilated the Li clan, this battle at Pear Blossom Slope would be the key. Everyone came excitedly and murderously, but never in their wildest dreams would they have thought that the other party had actually set up an ambush here as if they had foreseen it. Previously, there were so many changes in the formation and the goal was simply confusing. How did the other party know that there was an ambush here? How were they so sure that they were going to attack here? A middle-grade supreme martial artist from the Sure clan was injured the moment he came. At this moment he was miserably defending against the siege of a middle-grade supreme martial artist and two fifth-grade supreme martial artists from the Li clan. He shouted mournfully, "Why? Why is there an ambush here? Who was the one who leaked our information?" His voice shook the sky and spread far and wide. In his voice, that kind of grief, grievance and extreme despair of being betrayed seemed to have taken shape. The 8th grade supreme martial artist leading the Li clan was like the wind, his face full of cold murderous intent. Along the way, every time he attacked, he would definitely go all out. The Sure clan was led by two 7th grade supreme martial artists, but their strength was already a lot weaker. Once one of them was killed, the remaining one was even more helpless. They resisted desperately, but the subordinates around them were getting fewer and fewer. Blood splattered everywhere, and there were Sure clan members falling down continuously. In just a short time, there were only 5 Sure clan members left out of more than a dozen. Injured all over, they struggled to hold on shakily. This 7th grade supreme martial artist was furious. Suddenly he shouted, "Stop. I have something to say." In the time it took to say this word, another 4th grade supreme martial artist was chopped into minced meat by 7 to 8 swords. The 8th grade supreme martial artist from the Li clan waved his hand, and more than 50 people from the Li clan formed a large circle. He surrounded the 5 of them. He said indifferently, "In the Jianghu campaign, it is either life or death. Now it has come to this. What else do you have to say?" This supreme martial artist of the Sure clan puffed out his chest. Blood dripped from his forehead, but he didn't wipe it off. He just stared at this 8th grade supreme martial artist of the Li clan with a ferocious face and asked fiercely, "Life and death are normal. When I stepped into the pugilistic world, I never thought of having a good ending. But today's matter. It was too strange, so he wanted to die with a clear understanding. Lord Li, I only have one question for you." The Li clan's supreme martial artist's black beard fluttered in the wind. His eyes narrowed slightly as he said, "Ask away. If I can answer, I will answer." The supreme martial artist from the Sure clan looked up to the sky and laughed. "Good. I sure Yunma believe in old Master Li Jinglei. There is no hope of survival in today's situation. As long as I can die with a clear understanding and resolve the doubts in my heart, sure Yunma won't need old Master Li to do anything. I will end my own life here." He paused and asked word by word, "How did you know about the attack on Pear Blossom Slope this time?" Without waiting for an answer, he added another sentence, "Did someone betray us?" This operation could be said to be top secret. If it wasn't for someone leaking the news in advance, sure Yunma believed that no one would have guessed Diwu Qingrou's deployment. So he suspected a traitor at the first moment. The 8th grade supreme martial artist of the Li clan, Li Jinglei, was about to answer when he suddenly thought of something. He laughed and said, "Yunma guessed correctly. Someone informed us in advance. Since it has come to this, I won't hide it anymore." Sure Yunma nodded slowly, his eyes bloodshot. "Thank you, old Master Li. May I ask, who is this person?" The remaining 5 people of the Sure clan looked at Li Jinglei's face at the same time. Their eyes were filled with anger and hatred. Dying in battle wasn't scary. But being betrayed and dying was a grievance of the highest level. No martial artist could tolerate such a death. Especially when they were dead, but the person who betrayed them was still free and unfettered. This was even more unacceptable. Li Jinglei's eyes flashed. He said, "Your Sure clan seems to have a grudge against the Qin clan, right?" Sure Yunma trembled. "Qin clan?" Li Jinglei nodded lightly and said with pity, "There are some things that I don't want to do either. But the one you are attacking is the Li clan. So, Even though this method is a little too cruel, I have no choice but to accept this intelligence from the Qin clan. Above, Chu Yang couldn't bear to listen anymore. This old man from the Li clan is really shameless. This was obviously planned by Tianji, but he insisted that it was the Qin clan who leaked the news. The most infuriating thing is, these 5 people can't go back alive. They are dead for sure. So what if he told them the truth and respected the lives of those who died in battle? Why should he let them bear grudges even in death? Dong Wuxiang frowned and said, "Boss, I can't stand this old bastard. If I have the chance, I will definitely kill him with one strike." Chu Yang nodded slowly. "I don't object to killing him with one strike. But you may not have the chance. He may not live until the time you strike." Dong Wuxiang snorted and gripped the hilt of his saber tightly with his right hand. Especially with Dong Wuxiang's character, he couldn't stand Li Jinglei's deceit towards people who were about to die. He even felt that this was beyond despicable and shameless. This was the infinite despicableness of a person's heart. The despicableness of human nature. The despicableness of human nature. Shi Yunma was stunned. Suddenly he laughed miserably. "I see. I thought we were in the same boat this time. Ah, what a joke. Martial world, big clan, big clan. Ah, what a joke. What a joke." As he laughed hysterically, his aura rose terrifyingly. Opposite, Li Jinglei was watching the show. Suddenly he was shocked and shouted, "How dare you!" He flew forward. He hurriedly shouted, "Everyone disperse." Shi Yunma laughed miserably. "I said I will kill myself. I have fulfilled my promise. Ah, Li clan. How about a few of you come with me? Don't be lonely on the road to the netherworld. Ah." Following the loud laughter, there was a loud bang, and the entire world seemed to shake violently. A blinding white light flashed in the arena, followed by an earth-shattering explosion. Self-destruction. Shi Yunma's self-destruction was actually self-destruction. The power of a 7th-grade supreme martial artist's self-destruction was simply shocking. The 4 Shi family experts beside him were blown into pieces at the same time. The explosion spread out in all directions. Around 20 Li clan experts couldn't dodge in time. With a scream they turned into smoke. Li Jinglei tried his best to stop it. But he only blocked 2 sides. He was also blown away by the violent blast. His face flushed red. When the explosion ended, Shi Yunma had already turned into minced meat. On the ground. Within 500 feet, there was no more snow, and a deep black pit appeared. Green smoke was rising from the pit, and it was so deep that the bottom could not be seen. It was like a passage to the netherworld, and it was filled with a ghostly aura. Li Jinglei roared to the sky, "Damn it, damn it, damn it." Under the circumstances where the outcome was already decided. He actually let the other party self-destruct. This was a great humiliation. Li Jinglei felt that he had lost all his face. Of the 72 people, only 18 had died. The explosion actually killed 10 people. Such a mistake was simply unforgivable. Li Jinglei couldn't wait to give himself a few tight slaps. This is the fate of a despicable person. Above, the tree that Chu Yang and the rest were on also swayed up and down by the explosion. If not for Chu Yang and the rest using their cultivation to protect it, the tree would have fallen. Chu Yang looked down, his eyes cold. The other party is bound to die. If he had attacked immediately after explaining, this wouldn't have happened. Li Jinglei could have stopped this self-destruction. But his nature is too despicable. After lying to attack the people who were bound to die, he actually wanted to see the other party's despair and anger to increase his own pleasure. This gave the other party the chance to self-destruct. Air nodded slowly. Yes, since he attacked them, he definitely wanted to see the results. So, Li Jinglei has to take full responsibility for this self-destruction. Chu Yang shook his head and laughed coldly. What a joke. In such an intense battle, only 18 people died. An accidental self-destruction that shouldn't have happened actually killed 10 people. How ironic. If Tianji finds out, I'm afraid this old guy will be punished. Dong Wuxiang gloated. Chu Yang frowned and shook his head. How can Tianji bear to punish such a weirdo? He still has to keep him alive to let this kind of situation happen a few more times. Air instantly laughed. Below, the Li clan members were all in a daze. Of the 72 people, only 35 were left. Li Jinglei gritted his teeth and finally remembered Tianji's words. Retreat quickly after fighting. With a wave of his hand he said, retreat. The 35 people didn't even bother to collect the corpses. They immediately retreated and entered the pear blossom slope. On the other side, Qin Jianlong was feigning an attack on by Shuya 100 miles away to contain the enemy's strength. Feng Shui could vaguely hear a long roar from the pear blossom slope. He just thought that the battle had already begun and didn't take it to heart. It was only until a violent explosion sounded that Qin Jianlong frowned suddenly. That's not right. This explosion was clearly the self-destruction of an expert, and it had to be at least a 5th-grade supreme martial artist. And according to the intelligence, there wasn't even a supreme martial artist guarding the place. How could there be such an earth-shattering self-destruction? Did something happen? Qin Jianlong frowned and immediately roared into the sky. Several supreme martial artists beside him also roared and soared into the sky, their voices echoing for hundreds of miles. On the other side, Xiao Jingyan frowned. Why did they send out the assembly signal now? He immediately waved his hand and shouted, "Give up on this side and go over to take a look." His heart was in turmoil, his emotions were impetuous, and his heart was pounding. Chapter 1451. After a long while, Xiao Jingyan and Qin Jianlong stood on the edge of the huge crater, their legs trembling and their bodies emitting cold air. They felt chills running down their spines. Looking at the big hole in front of them and the corpses on the ground in front of them, the two of them were shocked to the point where they could not say a word. The Sher clan was completely annihilated. Before they set off, they couldn't have imagined such a result. Their almost foolproof strategic plan had actually met with an extremely tragic defeat. How did this happen? Xiao Jingyan's whole body was cold. He said this almost subconsciously. Yes, how did this happen? Qin Jianlong's expression was no better than Xiao Jingyan's. His old face was pale. Those who died here were not ordinary experts, but at least 40 supreme martial artists. The rest were all saint-level experts. The death of these people would be an unprecedented blow to the Sher clan. It would also be a big blow to the alliance of the 8 superclans. Could it be? Xiao Jingyan suddenly looked up at the chrysanthemum slope. Above, the Li clan's stronghold seemed to be paying attention to them. Xiao Jingyan shouted, "I am Xiao Jingyan of the Xiao clan. Who from the Li clan is here?" His voice was like thunder rumbling forward. Along with the sound wave, a large amount of snow rolled forward with a terrifying momentum. A reply came from the other side. "I am Li Jinglei. Brother Xiao, you are here too. Nice to meet you." When the 3 words Li Jinglei came out, Xiao Jingyan and Qin Jianlong's expressions changed at the same time. Li Jinglei's status in the Li clan was similar to their status in their own clans. Since Li Jinglei was here, it meant that the Li clan had made a big move. But how could the other party grasp the timing so well? Above. This bastard. He can't do anything right, but he can spoil everything. Chu Yang was speechless. If he didn't speak, Xiao Jingyan and Qin Jianlong might have tried to attack. At that time, the Li clan's ambush would attack, and we would join in immediately. At least half of these 2 clans would be left behind. It would be a glorious victory. He actually signed up without any hesitation. I'm really fucked up. What kind of idiot would give birth to this old thing? Moreover, the other party will report to Diwu Qingro once they return. Diwu Qingro will immediately know that Tianji and I are here. If they want to take advantage of Diwu Qingro in the future, they will have to do so. It's extremely difficult. Chu Yang was furious. This bastard. Damn it. Originally, when Diwu Qingro was hesitating and doubting, he could have at least taken advantage of this opportunity. But now it's good. Dong Wuxiang's tiger-like eyes emitted a sharp and cold light. He slowly said, "However, if you want to keep this information safe, you have to be careful. There is another way." "What method?" Mo Qingwu asked. "There aren't many people down there. There are only about 140 of them." Dong Wuxiang's eyes shot out a cold glint like the edge of a blade. "Kill them all. That's it." "No." Chu Yang shook his head resolutely. "There are too many enemies." He couldn't even finish it in one bite. Moreover, if the Li clan wanted to devour them, they would have to pay a similar price. The allied forces can bear these losses, but the Li clan can't. As he spoke, the people down below spread out in formation with a gesture from Qin Jianlong and Xiao Jingyan. This was a sign that they were preparing to retreat. Moreover, the front and rear of the army were clearly separated. It was guaranteed that even if they were attacked, at least 1/3 of them would escape back. Xiao Jingyan chuckled and said, "Brother Li, the Li clan is very powerful. Jingyan admires you greatly. However, I would like to ask which great talent saw through our plan. Or, is there a mole?" Li Jinglei burst into laughter. "There is definitely no mole." Xiao Jingyan was silent for a moment. Then he said indifferently, "In that case, farewell." With a sudden whistle, he leaped up and swept away like a whirlwind. "Retreat!" Qin Jianlong shouted. The team of more than 100 people rolled away, moving further and further away in the snow. In the blink of an eye, they had already disappeared into the dense snow. Li Jinglei didn't expect the other party to leave so decisively. He was also stunned for a moment before he said, "Retreat! Go back and report." The group immediately retreated and then returned against the wind and snow. At the place where the ambush was, the Li clan troops leaped up from the snow and followed the team back. They went back just like that. On the tree Chuyang sighed. "I really want to kill him." He told Diwu Qingru that there is a military advisor here with just one sentence. Dong Wuxiang was stunned. When did he tell him? Amole, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Let's go too. Chuyang sighed. Duxing and the others have missed. According to Gu Duxing's IQ, he must be lying in ambush at Centipede Ridge right now. Just let the 4 of them lie there. Let's find a cave to sleep in. Everyone laughed and leaped up. In the camp of the Allied forces, Xiao Jingyan and Qin Jianlong's return gave everyone a huge shock. Both teams came out unscathed. However, the problem was that 3 teams had gone out, but only 2 teams had returned. What about the other team? Where did they go? Jingyan. Where are the people of the Shi clan? Yi Xiaoyao came up. Dead, completely dead. Xiao Jingyan said blankly. Yi Xiaoyao trembled and was dumbfounded. After a while, everyone gathered in the big tent. Diwu Qingru sat on the main seat with a calm face. The allied forces of the 2 clans are back. 3 clans went out and 1 fell. Diwu Qingru pressed his temples tiredly. Everyone, our real enemy is here. All the big shots were stunned. Real enemy? Real enemy that won't rest until one of us is dead. An enemy that is so strong that we can hardly fight against it. And an enemy of destiny. Diwu Qingru's words were heavier than the last. 3 sentences, like 3 thunderbolts, suddenly wedged into everyone's hearts. This caused everyone to panic as they felt a boundless pressure pressing down on them out of nowhere. Tribulation. Tribulation Sword Master and his tribulation? Everyone discussed. Diwu Qingru slammed the table and the sound was crisp. Everyone looked up and saw Diwu Qingru's serious face and majestic body. His sharp eyes slowly slid across everyone's faces and he said slowly, "I want to remind you. Now, it's time for the big clans to be removed, which means it's time for a change of dynasty." Everyone was in awe. Tribulation Sword Master has led his tribulation to enter the Li clan. Diwu Qingru said lightly, "If we can't destroy Tribulation Sword Master and his tribulation in this battle, then after this battle, the world will collapse. The world. After this battle, the world will collapse. The only chance to win to change our fate is in this battle. If we can't win this battle, there won't be a second chance in the future." Diwu Qingru's eyes were cold. "Commander-in-Chief." Yi Xiaoyao thought for a while and said, "Why are you so sure that Tribulation Sword Master is here? It seems that the news that Xiao Jingyan and Qin Jianlong brought back didn't mention Tribulation Sword Master at all." Diwu Qingru frowned. "You have doubts. I don't dare." Yi Xiaoyao took 2 steps back and sat down. It was a few months ago. Diwu Qingru would have been slapped to death by Yi Xiaoyao if he said that. "You think you're the commander-in-chief? Do you really think you're the commander-in-chief?" But now, Yi Xiaoyao didn't get angry at all except for taking a step back and keeping quiet. He even felt that it was right. Before this, we were invincible. Today's battle is a great loss. Diwu Qingru said lightly, "Without the help of masters, how could the Li clan have such means? But now in the world, how many masters are there? Except for Tribulation Sword Master and his tribulation, there's no one else. Not to mention that Li Xiong too is one of the tribulations." Diwu Qingru only briefly explained. After giving Yi Xiaoyao face, he immediately said, "Now, I have a few requests. If you can't agree, I'll hand over the commander-in-chief position." Everyone's face changed. "First, in the past we could laugh and talk about everything. I'll explain everything in detail. But from now on there's no time to explain. I can only issue orders. And you must follow them unconditionally. At the moment of life and death, if you don't have strict discipline, you'll definitely lose," Diwu Qingru said. After he finished speaking, his sharp eyes swept across the room, and he repeated his words again, word by word. "What I said is true. None. Oh, obey. Do you understand?" "Yes." Everyone immediately sat up straight. Their faces were solemn and serious. Diwu Qingru was right. If they still laughed and laughed in front of Tribulation Swordmaster and Tribulation, they wouldn't even know how they died. For 10,000 years, Tribulation Swordmaster had overturned the heavenly layer 8 times. This was the first time. Who dared to look down on him? Second, we don't have enough troops now. Diwu Qingru said, send a message to your clans and ask them to send more troops. Besiege Tribulation Swordmaster. Yes. Third, after the new team arrives, I don't want to repeat the rules. I want you to organize them well. Once someone violates the rules, it's not a punishment but a beheading. Yes. The 8 big clans will work together with the law enforcement officers. This will be the biggest event in the heavenly layer in the past 10,000 years. Diwu Qingru said quietly, I hope we can change our destiny and change the 10,000 years of reincarnation. Everyone's blood was boiling. The pressure of 10,000 years made everyone breathless at this moment. But at the same time, everyone's eyes were bursting with excitement. Change destiny. What kind of feat was this? No one could defeat Tribulation Swordmaster and his tribulation in 10,000 years. Could we defeat them? The defeat this time brought about an unprecedented pressure. It also brought out Tribulation, the opponent that Diwu Qingru had been looking forward to. Under such circumstances, Diwu Qingru's prestige also skyrocketed to an unprecedented height. Diwu Qingru's face was calm. He raised his head and looked at the cloud mountain quietly. A fighting spirit slowly surged in his heart. Jianghu, you and I are finally going to fight again. Thank you, Wuxia, Lazy Cat, Anong, Cook Smoke. If time could turn back, Really Crazy, Dragon Shadow Fantasy, Proud Blue Frost, A Night of Joy, Just Soy Sauce Tonight, Flying Snow, Wooden White Towel, and other Alliance Masters for their gifts and support. During this period, too many brothers have given me gifts. Thank you all for your support. It would be impolite for me to accept your gifts. If I were to list them one by one, there would be too many people. I'm afraid it would exceed the number of words in this chapter. This makes me proud but also a little nervous. I'd like to express my gratitude to all of you. I'll compile a list in a few days and thank you one by one. Thank you all for your hospitality. Chapter 1452. Looking at Li Jinglei, who had returned to report, Mo Tianji hurriedly pretended to yawn after he finished listening to the report. His mouth opened wide, and he fiercely controlled his eyes to not reveal a strong sense of surprise. However, a strong urge to jump up and curse rose in his heart. This was too weird. Even if they were powerful, they shouldn't have wasted their resources like this. In Mo Tianji's estimation, the Li clan wouldn't have suffered much from this sudden ambush. At most, a dozen people would have died and the results would have been brilliant. But the current situation was, even though the results were brilliant, the number of people who died was more than double of what they had expected. And there were a few who were missing limbs, and these were all due to accidents. Mo Tianji swallowed his saliva and shut his mouth. He looked at Li Jinglei, who kept saying, "It's my fault, it's my oversight," without a hint of remorse on his face. Finally, Mo Tianji smiled gently and comforted him. "It's all right. It's an accident. It's not your fault. How can you blame Elder Li?" Li Jinglei sighed and said, "It's a pity that there are so many heroes in the clan. I must comfort their families." He smiled apologetically and said, "I'll go and make some preparations. Those who died, I'm willing to pay to comfort them." He turned and left hurriedly. Mo Tianji easily saw that the moment he turned around, the slight heaviness on his face had completely disappeared without a trace. His footsteps had also become light and quick. Mo Tianji observed the expressions of the other higher-ups of the Li clan and realized that they all looked relieved. As if the matter was resolved just like that. They were very satisfied, proud, and relaxed. Mo Tianji thought to himself, "Looks like the Li clan thinks so. Even if it's a supreme martial artist. Even if a high-level supreme martial artist dies, it's just a sum of money to compensate them." Suddenly he felt very ironic. An expert who risked his life for you and you're going to give up just like that? Have you ever thought about the feelings of their families? Their bloodline inheritance? Did they die for the sake of innocent people? They shouldn't have died in the first place. Your negligence caused so many people to die and you let it go so easily? Mo Tianji smiled warmly, but he had already judged the Li clan in his heart. The Li clan definitely had no future. Definitely no future. As Li Wubo watched Li Jinglei leave, the expression on his face gradually turned into one of worry. He looked at Mo Tianji. Mo Tianji smiled and said, Now there is no other way. Prepare for a tough battle. Pay attention to the enemy's news at all times. Report to me no matter the slightest movement. All right. Li Wubo agreed. Somewhat hesitant, he asked, "What does Brother Mo mean? The other party can already deduce that you're here from this stop?" Mo Tianji's eyes flickered. They don't speculate about me. Instead, he would speculate that my brothers and I are all here. It's just a slip of the tongue, to such an extent. Li Wubo was tongue-tied for a long time, unable to utter a single word. Even though he had a strong urge to strangle Li Jinglei. But in the end he did not dare to say it out loud. What Mo Tianji said was a mistake. He was referring to Li Jinglei's statement that there was absolutely no traitor. Li Jinglei's words were meant to stir up trouble. Did you really believe me when I said there was absolutely no traitor? His intentions were good, but his IQ was really not high enough. Such a clumsy attempt to provoke Diwu Qingru was like a child guessing a riddle with an adult. Guess how many pieces of candy I have in my hand? If you guess correctly, I'll give you all 3 pieces, just like that. It would have been better if he didn't say that. If Diwu Qingru couldn't react in time, he could really kill himself. Just one sentence. Li Jinglei had given up their greatest advantage. How could Li Wubo not be so angry that his liver hurt? Li Ju quickly composed himself and respectfully accompanied Mo Tianji back. Along the way he was full of praises for Mo Tianji and expressed that he would definitely learn from Mo Tianji. Mo Tianji smiled, thinking that he had made a wrong decision. How good would it be if the one accompanying him now was not Rui Badong but Dong Wushang? Dong Wushang would definitely grab this chattering fellow by the neck and throw him out. Rui Badong would only watch the show and build his happiness on top of his own pain. Not long after Mo Tianji returned to the small courtyard, Li Xiong also returned. A few sleds followed behind, pulling the carriage. It was obvious that Li Xiong was very attentive towards Meng Huanhuan's parents. Seeing that Li Ju was in his courtyard, Li Xiong was a little surprised. After greeting him, he helped the 2 elders down the carriage and arranged their accommodations. Li Ju waited for him to make the arrangements and said with a smile, "Xiong, now that you have brought Miss Huanhuan's parents to your side, you have no more worries, right?" Li Xiong said gratefully, "Yes, I am extremely grateful for this decision of the clan." Li Ju's eyes flashed and he said with a smile, "Yes, now is an eventful time. The clan wants me to tell you that from now on, our clan will have to fight with all our might." Li Xiong said loudly, "Of course. Li Xiong will definitely not fall behind." Li Ju smiled and nodded. "Good." Mo Tianji looked on coldly and sighed in his heart. "Silly boy, how far are you going to let them use you?" The situation on the road was turbulent. At this moment, the 7 great clans all turned their attention to the battle in the northwest. More and more troops were coming. The Shao clan even sent out all their elites. Shao Qinyu, the elder master of the Shao clan, personally went north, causing a huge commotion. The second in command of the Shao clan, Shao Qinlei, went missing in the Poplar Valley in the southeast. Shao Qinyu waited for a long time, but Shao Qinlei didn't return. He went to check in person but there were no clues. In shock and anger, he went directly to the Chu clan in the flat mountain ridge and asked to see the Moon Breeze couple. Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro said that they didn't know. Shao Qinyu couldn't do anything to the Chu clan that was overseen by the Moon Breeze couple. He returned resentfully. Now that he heard that the Tribulation Sword Master and the others appeared in the northwest, Shao Qinyu thought of the Dragon and Phoenix dance and the birth of Tribulation. He wondered if the disappearance of his second brother had something to do with the Tribulation Sword Master? Could it really have nothing to do with Chu Yang? But then the clan confirmed the news 3 days ago. Gu Duxing, Mo Tianji and Luo Kadi were the kidnappers, and Chu Yang of the Chu clan was close to these people. There was almost no distinction between them. Shao Qinyu immediately concluded that if Chu Yang wasn't the Tribulation Sword Master, he must be the kidnappers. He must be the kidnappers. Then, in fact, it still had something to do with Chu Yang. If he found Chu Yang, he would know the exact news of his second brother. And the Chu clan had the Moon Breeze couple overseeing it. No matter how arrogant Shao Qinyu was, he wouldn't dare to face the Moon Breeze couple alone. In addition, when he used his divine consciousness to search the Chu clan, Chu Yang wasn't there. Since Tribulation appeared in the northwest, then Chu Yang must also be in the northwest. So Shao Qinyu came all the way to the northwest. Shao Qinyu moved. Suddenly, wind and thunder were everywhere. Everyone was looking at the northwest silently. No one really understood the relationship between the two brothers, Shao Qinyu and Shao Qinlei. They were born from the same mother, they were also lifelong confidants and more importantly lifelong comrades. They were each other's spiritual support. Xiao Qinyu came all the way from the southeast in a carriage. He walked especially slowly. After Yi Qinshan reached an agreement with him. He had already returned to the Yi clan. Before he left he had advised him, "Don't leave the southeast so easily." But Xiao Qinyu stepped out of the southeast on the 5th day after Yi Qinshan left. He just sat in the carriage with his eyes closed, not moving at all. In front and behind him were his personal guards, as well as his brothers who had gone through thick and thin in the past. Behind the carriage was the Xiao clan's elite team. 8 horses pulled the carriage. The carriage didn't have curtains at all. Xiao Qinyu also wouldn't allow anything to block his eyes. The north wind blew against him, but Xiao Qinyu didn't move. His eyes were closed. The expression on his face was warm and relaxed. He was reminiscing, facing the north wind. His thoughts, however, wandered over the past 1,000 years. Back then his great father only left behind the Xiao clan's stall, and then he never returned. He and his second brother worked together to recruit talents from all over the place. They developed their business and finally became one of the great clans. Then, generation after generation, their development continued like this. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Back then so many brothers came one after another, some died and some left. But the current Xiao clan had after all developed into a colossus. For so many years, he and his second brother relied on each other and weathered the storms of the martial world. They had never been separated. That time, when he killed merciless tyrant, he was seriously injured and almost died. Even the divine doctor of the Medicine Valley said that he couldn't be saved. It was his second brother who watched over him every day, exhausting his energy dozens of times a day to treat his injuries. Later, he even used up half of the Xiao clan's assets in exchange for a piece of heaven-nourishing jade from the Medicine Valley. Then, his second brother used the method of damaging his own spirit to eliminate the aura of life and death on the heaven-nourishing jade. He turned it into an elixir and fed it to Xiao Qinyu, finally saving him. But the price he paid was... From then on, he was an early-stage supreme martial artist, with no hope of advancing in his lifetime. Now his second brother was missing. Xiao Qinyu didn't want to believe that his second brother was dead. Until now, he had always insisted that his second brother was just missing. Ever since the reappearance of the Calamity Sword, the Xiao clan had been in constant changes. First, the younger generation kept losing their lives. Then his eldest son, Xiao Se, also died in battle in Tianji City. Thinking of this, Xiao Qinyu sighed, his interest waning. He thought of the little meatball that made him go crazy with joy when it was born. When he first held it in his arms, he thought of the hardships his son had encountered as he grew up. Now his son was dead, but he was still alive. His younger brother was missing, but he was still alive. The clan was in a precarious situation, but he was still alive. Maybe I've lived for too long. Xiao Qinyu took a deep breath and let out a long sigh. Then the muscles on his face twitched slightly. He muttered, "If my second brother is really, then even if I have to slaughter the whole world, I will take revenge. What kind of person is my second brother? If even he, then what right do those people who still exist in the world, as insignificant as ants and as stupid as pigs, have to live longer than my second brother?" His state of mind changed. Suddenly, an overwhelming aura of hostility appeared and swept across the clear sky. At this moment, everywhere it passed, there was complete silence. Yesterday I went to the hospital. A few of my colleagues from back then were already there. Everyone kept me company. Because of the cruel car accident, my business teacher didn't say a word from the moment he was sent to the hospital. Until he passed away after 22 o'clock, he only opened his eyes once. He wasn't even 40 years old. After returning home I felt weak all over. Suddenly I felt very illusory. Until now, the mournful cries of my sister-in-law still seemed to be echoing in my ears. I couldn't describe what I was feeling. The accident is being handled, but the follow-up doesn't seem to be important. All I can do is to pay attention. All words of comfort seem so weak I can't say anything more. This is the first update of the day. G. Chapter 1453. Xiao Qinyu passed by the Yi clan's territory. Yi Qinshan was already waiting for him along the way. The two old friends met again in less than half a month, but it felt as strange as if it was a different world. Yi Qinshan stood with his hands behind his back on the tree-lined ancient path, while Xiao Qinyu sat silently in the carriage. The two of them looked at each other silently. After a long time Yi Qinshan didn't say a word. In a flash he disappeared. Xiao Qinyu closed his eyes and said indifferently, "Let's go." Old friends of 10,000 years met on the road, but they didn't say a word. Not even telepathic communication. Just looking at each other for a while, both of them already knew each other. Yi Qinshan returned to the Yi clan, while Xiao Qinyu continued on his journey. Everything was peaceful. Yi Qinshan came here to persuade Xiao Qinyu to go back, but he could feel Xiao Qinyu's determination to die 1,000 times over. No matter what he said, it was unnecessary. And at this moment in the snowy northwest, a battle was unfolding. The Dharma Supreme stood at the peak of the snow cliff, his black robe fluttering in the wind. His black hair parted and fell down, his gaze was calm and deep in thought, but with a hint of fierceness. He could feel the fierce aura behind him getting closer and closer. Ever since he revealed a little of his divine perception to help Diwu Qingru that day, the Dharma Supreme knew that he was being watched. And he also knew who this person was. Wu Juqing. The Dharma Supreme could only hide. His great merit had yet to be accomplished. Even if he were to face the Moon Breeze couple at the same time, the Dharma Supreme was confident of defeating them. But against this person, the Dharma Supreme had no confidence at all. With one chasing and the other hiding, the two of them had been playing hide-and-seek for almost a month. But now the Dharma Supreme didn't hide anymore. In this month, he had made use of the other party's shocking pressure to train his spirit fusion and digest the heaven-nourishing jade in his body. Now he had already reached the stage of perfect fusion. He had broken through the last step. The Dharma Supreme was now at the peak. He was no longer afraid of anyone. Furthermore, after such a sudden breakthrough, he couldn't wait to prove his strength. And now, in this situation, Wu Juqing was the best candidate. He stood with his hands behind his back, his black robe and black hair dancing in the wind and snow. He wanted to fly straight into the air. The snow that filled the sky was thick and dense, but not a single piece of it touched his body. When it got close to his body, it was gently bounced off by an indescribable force and scattered far away. Although his expression was calm, his aura was soaring to the sky. That was a kind of absolute confidence. No one in this world can stop my monstrous self-confidence. The snowstorm suddenly intensified. A white figure abruptly appeared in the void 200 feet in front of the Dharma Supreme. This person's entire body seemed to have become one with the wind and snow. He stood in the void with his hands clasped behind his back, looking at the Dharma Supreme indifferently. Neither of them spoke. They just looked at each other quietly with a faint smile on their lips. Snowflakes within 100 miles. They were all smashed into pieces. After a long while, the Dharma Supreme smiled gently. "You're here?" As he spoke, his imposing aura suddenly withdrew, and then his figure flew back by 60 m like a feather. He took the initiative to leave some space for the other party. Wu Juqing didn't move forward. He merely smiled calmly. "You're not running anymore?" The Dharma Supreme smiled indifferently. "Why should I escape?" With a whoosh, Wu Juqing floated forward, crossing the distance of 60 m. Standing on the cliff, he asked, "Why?" Wu Juqing's question was a little out of the blue, but the Dharma Supreme understood what he meant. He replied, "For myself." Wu Juqing shook his head indifferently, a smile appearing at the corners of his mouth. Then he suddenly looked up and laughed loudly. "That's right. That's right. Every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. That's a really good reason." The Dharma Supreme didn't say anything. He just smiled in response. With his hands clasped behind his back, Wu Juqing said, "These few days your aura has been steadily getting stronger. I can feel it, but I won't interrupt you. It's only now that you've finally completed your cultivation that I come out to meet you." The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, "Won't interrupt me? That's because you don't dare to. You're afraid. You're afraid that if you suddenly interrupt me, it'll create inner demons in your heart. Even if you can kill me, you won't dare to." Wu Juqing nodded. "That's right. Killing you is a small matter, but inner demons are a big matter." The Dharma Supreme laughed. "So you can only wait until now." With his hands clasped behind his back, Wu Juqing smiled. "It's the same to me at any time. I don't need to prepare to kill you." The Dharma Supreme laughed lightly. "Not necessarily. Don't you have any other questions to ask me?" Wu Juqing nodded lightly. "Yes, I have other questions to ask you. Back then you were seriously injured. How did you recover in such a short time and become even stronger than before?" The Dharma Supreme laughed. "You also know that I'm not Dongfang Badeo. You once said that you're Lu Long." There was some mockery in Wu Juqing's eyes. "However, the rumored Lu Long is a righteous man who keeps his promises and never plays tricks. But you're not." The Dharma Supreme smiled. Then who exactly are you? Asked Wu Jueqing. The Dharma Supreme shook his head and laughed. Let me answer your question first. When I was seriously injured back then, the body that Dongfang Badao left me was almost completely destroyed. All my internal organs were almost completely shattered. Moreover, the vitality of my cell phone all these years turned into nothing. All these years, I had been relying on seizing vitality to destroy and suppress Dongfang Badao's remnant soul. However, although my body was seriously injured to the point where there was no vitality, Dongfang Badao's remnant soul finally disappeared for real at the moment his physical body died. This was my chance. I was supposed to die, but I realized that although my body was dead, I wasn't. It was only then that I understood that this body had now completely become an ownerless object. So I immediately activated my power and slaughtered those people in the Medicine Valley to seize the heaven-nourishing jade. You also know that the heaven-nourishing jade is useful for people whose spirits have dissipated. In other words, it is useful for the dead. I used the dissipation and death of this body's remnant soul to dissolve part of the heaven-nourishing jade's power of reincarnation and converted the remaining part into vitality of the heavens. Using the vitality of the heavens to reconstruct this body, but those heaven-nourishing jade were not enough. So I slaughtered the Medicine Valley and used all the heaven-nourishing jade to transform and cultivate. Until now, this body has been completely transformed by me into an innate body. Moreover, it is a body of vitality. As a blessing in disguise, Dongfang Badao's spirit has also completely dissipated. Now, even a strand of hair on this body is mine. It no longer has anything to do with Dongfang Badao. And my divine technique has also achieved great success because of this. The Dharma Supreme said somewhat sadly, back then, the soul energy of my brothers has also finally been refined by me and turned into my own strength. Therefore, my current strength has already completely surpassed Ning Tianya. There was anger in Wu Jueqing's eyes. Your brother's soul energy. You actually refined your brother's soul energy. That is your brother. My brother's soul energy is also my brother's soul energy. Energy is energy regardless of whether it is a brother or a wife. The Dharma Supreme said coldly, moreover, that enemy was so powerful that I couldn't contend with him at all. If I don't think of a way, am I supposed to wait for death? Despicable and shameless. Wu Jueqing slowly uttered these words. You are not worthy of being a kidnapper. Ha. Kidnapper ha. This is really fucking bullshit. The Dharma Supreme laughed maniacally. Wu Jueqing, what do you think a kidnapper is? What kind of bullshit does this title represent? I'm not worthy? Ha ha, fucking kidnapper. It is the kidnapper who is not worthy of me. Wu Jueqing's eyes were burning with anger. Gritting his teeth, he said word by word, heartless and unscrupulous, you are worse than pigs and dogs. Back then, if not for your brothers, how many times would you have died? And now you actually say such words. The Dharma Supreme laughed heartily, laughing to his heart's content. Even tears were coming out of his eyes. He bent over, holding his stomach, laughing so hard that he was panting. Wu Jueqing. Why don't you say that if not for me back then, how many times would they have died? Wu Jueqing took a deep breath. Suddenly, a shocking murderous intent appeared abruptly. Having said so much, he already didn't want to say another word. Right now, he only wanted to destroy this person who had insulted the thing that he valued and treasured the most. Tear him into pieces. What I value the most in my life is brotherhood. Every single one of my brothers back then is still alive in my heart. Everything that they have done for me, I will remember in my heart. Their looks, figures, habits, family situation, hobbies, catchphrases, and even some of the things that they have said before, are still vivid in my mind. This is my treasure. And also my pillar of support. My brothers. Now, you have insulted the feelings of the kidnapper, insulted the brotherhood of the kidnapper. Even if the people you have insulted have nothing to do with me, the brotherhood between them is the same as what I value the most. A traitor has no right to insult such feelings. These words were all in Wu Jueqing's heart. He didn't say a single word. He felt that if he did, it would be an insult to these words in the ears of the other party. An imposing aura was born, bringing with it a furious pressure that could collapse the sky and an earth-shattering murderous intent, pressing down on the Dharma Supreme like a tidal wave. The Dharma Supreme laughed coldly. Wu Jueqing, do you think that you can still defeat me so easily? His two hands separated and his black robe fluttered violently. An indescribable aura, bringing with it a kind of grand evil, gushed out fiercely. It was obviously evil, yet it gave off a grand feeling. Wu Jueqing's eyes narrowed, but he didn't say a word. He walked forward step by step. With his first step, the whole space shook violently. With his second step, the whole mountain under his feet shook. With his third step, everything within a 1,000-mile radius shook at the same time. The whole space was filled with a violent aura and suffocating murderous intent. He was an incomparably proud person. Since he had decided that the other party wasn't worthy of him speaking, he wouldn't speak again until the end of the battle. The Dharma Supreme's long hair danced in the wind and snow, like many strange black snakes, twisting and turning in the air. Chapter 1454. Wu Jueqing was advancing. Every step he took shook the mountains and the earth. After 3 steps, the mountains and valleys began to rumble together. The heavens seemed to be trembling at this moment. The accumulated snow on the surrounding mountains rose like smoke, spreading and surging like waves. The Dharma Supreme stood tall and straight, looking at Wu Jueqing. His gaze was relaxed, and even a little amused as he watched Wu Jueqing walk toward him step by step. Wu Jueqing had already taken his first step. His aura had already accumulated to its peak. His murderous aura had also reached its peak. His battle intent had also risen to the point where it could burn the heavens. If he were to strike now, it would be an earth-shattering attack. But the Dharma Supreme obviously didn't want to accept Wu Jueqing's attack just like that. Just as Wu Jueqing had just taken his first step, before his foot even landed on the ground, the Dharma Supreme suddenly moved. He suddenly stretched out a leg and stomped forward. His body leaned forward slightly. An extremely strong aura suddenly rushed out, facing Wu Jueqing's aura head-on. Repelling force. At the moment when Wu Jueqing's aura had just taken shape, the Dharma Supreme decisively attacked, interrupting the possibility of this force truly reaching its peak. At this moment, Wu Jueqing felt extremely strange. It was as if he was suddenly stopped just as he was about to explode. With an angry snort, he took his 7th step. With a loud explosion, the 2 forces of qi were in a stalemate for a moment. A strange sound of tearing silk was heard, which made people's teeth ache. Then, starting from the middle, it suddenly rushed into the clouds like a tornado. The clouds in the sky were suddenly swept away, leaving a line in the sky. Under their feet, there was another strange tearing sound that made one tremble in fear. From the ground right between the two, a crack suddenly appeared. This entire mountain, like a snow-white steamed bun that was suddenly torn apart from the middle by someone, separated. With a loud boom, the 2 of them didn't move, but the 2 mountains that were separated retreated rapidly. The distance between the 2 of them suddenly increased to 500 feet just like that. Wu Jueqing's clothes were as white as snow. He suddenly flew up, rushing into the air with a whoosh, like a snow-white crane, rushing up into the snowstorm. The moment he flew up, a blue color suddenly appeared on his body. Then it turned into a blue whirlwind that wrapped around his body. With a whoosh he crossed the space and soared through the air. All the snow on the ground. Following his pouncing momentum, all of them swept towards the Dharma Supreme in an orderly manner. The Dharma Supreme did not utter a single word as he rose into the air. He floated up and an evil black aura suddenly appeared on his body. Then, like a cannonball, he charged towards the rapidly approaching Wu Jueqing. It was just a flash. Due to the high speed, the afterimages left behind by the 2 of them could still be seen clearly, but the 2 of them had already collided fiercely. Wu Jueqing's left palm, right fist, kick had already transformed into 2 elbows in an instant, smashing down madly with the force of 10,000 caddies. The Dharma Supreme's hair stood on end. His body moved forward rapidly as the other party's knee came towards him. His body suddenly and strangely floated into a straight line in the air. His 2 hands grabbed at Wu Jueqing's hands fiercely. Wu Jueqing's left palm cut fiercely while the Dharma Supreme's right hand grabbed at his meridians. Wu Jueqing's left hand turned into a fist and smashed down hard on the Dharma Supreme's fingers. The Dharma Supreme changed his move, a finger with a strong black aura pointing upwards. Wu Jueqing immediately changed his move, cutting horizontally at the other party's wrist. The Dharma Supreme retracted his finger and his right elbow suddenly struck out. Wu Jueqing's eyes flashed and he similarly struck out with his elbow. This was only one side. On the other side, the Dharma Supreme's left hand and Wu Jueqing's right hand similarly changed their moves 7 to 8 times, and similarly met with their elbows. Bam, 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 their elbows collided fiercely for more than 100 times in the air. Then with a whoosh, the Dharma Supreme let out a muffled grunt while Wu Jueqing let out a cold snort. The Dharma Supreme's body flew backwards in a straight line. Similarly, Wu Jueqing retreated in the air with a whoosh, as if he was being pulled by a rope behind him. The next moment, the two of them who were retreating at high speed suddenly changed their direction to advance rapidly. This created a strange and incomprehensible phenomenon. In the air, a row of Dharma Supreme's illusory figures was retreating rapidly, but another row of illusory figures was advancing rapidly. At the same time. It was the same for Wu Jueqing on the opposite side. The two rows of illusory figures in the air were either advancing or retreating, but the two of them had already reached a height of 10,000 feet in the air. The illusory figures left behind along the way were still clearly of countless Dharma Supreme and countless Wu Jueqing figures battling with each other. Advancing bit by bit, the illusory figures could actually completely reproduce the entire process. Taking in the mountains and rivers into the chest, taking in the heavens and earth as mustard seeds. The Dharma Supreme howled into the sky. Wu Jueqing, you have also reached such a stage. Opposite him, Wu Jueqing didn't say a word. Instead, each move was more ruthless than the previous, bombarding indiscriminately with attacks that seemed to split the heavens and earth. The Dharma Supreme couldn't stop laughing. Opposite him, Wu Jueqing's face was full of disdain and he didn't say a word. The two of them, one moving and one still, actually contrasted each other beautifully. Only the battle of life and death between the two of them was left. In the time that an ordinary person could only take a breath, they had already exchanged 1,700 moves each. Banging sounds rang out continuously. The two of them were 10,000 feet in the air, but the surrounding mountains were trembling as if dancing. Could even be said that they were twisting. The two figures kept separating, converging, and separating again. Suddenly, the sky was filled with the black and white afterimages of the two figures, densely packed, filling up the entire sky. It was as if there was no place for the white snow in the sky to stay. Another collision occurred. Wu Jueqing's palm, which was emitting blue aura, struck the Dharma Supreme's right chest ruthlessly. At the same time, the Dharma Supreme's palm, which was emitting black aura, also struck Wu Jueqing's left shoulder. As if struck by lightning at the same time, the two of them flew out in opposite directions in the air like kites with broken strings. Halfway through their flight, they both spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. Then, the entire scene in the sky seemed to have suddenly come to a standstill. Immediately after, a huge explosion occurred. Rings and rings of air rippled outwards like fish scales. As they spread, rings and rings of space cracks appeared in the sky. They were dark, like the mouth of a demon, opening and closing savagely. The mountain rocks and snow danced wildly in the sky as if they had come to life, just as the huge explosion occurred here. And at another place hundreds of miles away, the two of them were already standing face to face, facing each other with solemn expressions. Wu Jueqing's face was a little pale, while the Dharma Supreme's face was a little gray. Both of them were injured and it seemed like they were evenly matched. Wu Jueqing still didn't say anything. The Dharma Supreme took a breath and said, "Brother Wu, you can feel it too, right? I'm no longer the me from a year ago." He smiled somewhat conceitedly. "A year ago I could only look up to you. But now I'm already on par with you." His eyes flashed and he said, "Give me another half a year and I'll be able to kill you." He paused for a moment. Then he said solemnly, "Kill you? Dog. You're like a dog." Wu Jueqing still didn't say anything. He only looked at the Dharma Supreme, his eyes full of contempt. Contempt, disdain, what he meant was, with trash like you, other than fighting, I don't have the mood to say a single word. Saying a single word would be an insult to the word. He knew that the Dharma Supreme was trying to provoke him. But not only was he not angry, he was instead full of contempt. He only looked at the Dharma Supreme with disdain, his eyes full of contempt. The Dharma Supreme suddenly felt a surge of anger in his heart. He had been provoking the other party all this while, but the other party didn't give any response at all, and was just looking at him with such disdain. But it was this kind of silent contempt that the Dharma Supreme couldn't stand. Wu Jueqing was like a high and mighty judge, looking at the criminal before him with contempt, as if he was looking at a bedbug. Although he didn't say anything, every breath was saying, "You're a heartless villain who's worse than a pig or a dog." The Dharma Supreme wasn't angry because of this attitude. What he couldn't stand was that in front of Wu Jueqing he was actually lower than him psychologically. No matter how much he tried, he couldn't raise his head. No matter what, he just didn't have the confidence. As time went by, the Dharma Supreme finally roared furiously, "What's so great about you? What right do you have to look at me like this? Aren't you a kidnapper? Aren't you the only one left among the brothers from back then? Don't you feel better? How much more noble are you than me? How much more at ease can you feel than me? Wu Jueqing's eyes were like ice, looking at him coldly and disdainfully. We're the same. The same, do you understand? The Dharma Supreme said angrily, two grasshoppers on the same line, who can be more superior than the other? I'm different from you. Wu Jueqing didn't intend to say anything at first, but this same sentence made him unable to hold it in, because this was what he was most proud of. Do you really think I don't know who you are? Do you really think I'll believe that you're Lu Long? The Dharma Supreme was startled. Then he suddenly burst into laughter, his eyes somewhat crazed and ferocious. You've spoken? Didn't you refuse to speak? Ah, didn't you still speak? He could be sanctimonious in front of anyone in the world, but not Wu Jueqing. Even if his brothers from back then came back to life, he wouldn't feel as much pressure as facing Wu Jueqing. Because he and Wu Jueqing were the only survivors, and Wu Jueqing was much older than him, but his loyalty had never changed. But he had already betrayed him. Although he had never admitted his betrayal, deep in his heart, he knew very well that he was no longer who he was back then. But Wu Jueqing was still Wu Jueqing. He wasn't afraid because he was weaker than Wu Jueqing, but because he felt guilty. The guilt of his conscience. This was enough to make him unable to straighten his spine in front of Wu Jueqing for the rest of his life. In front of Wu Jueqing, he didn't even have the right to straighten his spine. This was also the reason why he wanted to frame Wu Jueqing during the Battle of Slaying of Tao. Even if his cultivation was 10,000 times higher than Wu Jueqing's, he wouldn't be able to lift his head in front of Wu Jueqing. First update. Gee, I have something to do tomorrow, so I'll be working overtime through the night after today's 2 updates. I'll publish tomorrow's 2 chapters whenever I'm done writing them. Gee, that you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.